The art of being alone, finding strength in solitude. What does it mean to be alone? For many of us, the word itself can bring a shiver of discomfort. It conjures feelings of being left out, of being unwanted, of loneliness. But what if we have been looking at it all wrong? What if being alone is not a state to be avoided, but rather a powerful opportunity to be embraced? This is a journey to rediscover the lost art of solitude. It is about understanding that choosing to be alone is not about isolating yourself from the world, but about connecting more deeply with the most important person in your life, yourself. We will explore how moments of quiet can become your greatest source of strength, clarity, and creativity. This is not about becoming a hermit. It is about learning to be your own best company so that you can bring your very best self to the world. Before we begin our journey together, I have a question for you. Think of the last time you truly enjoyed a moment all by yourself, with no phone, no television, no distractions. What were you doing? Please take a moment to share that memory in the comments below. There is no right or wrong answer, and your experience might just inspire someone else. Chapter 1. Redefining alone. The difference between solitude and loneliness. Let us begin by tackling the biggest misunderstanding of all, a giant mix-up that has caused so much unnecessary pain and anxiety in our modern world. It is the confusion between two very different words, two completely different states of being: loneliness and solitude. For too long, we have treated these words as if they mean the same thing. We have used them interchangeably, blurring the lines until the very idea of being by oneself has become coated in a thick layer of fear and sadness. Society has taught us that to be alone is to be lonely, and to be lonely is one of the worst things a person can be. This chapter is about taking a stand against that idea. It is about drawing a clear, bold line in the sand. On one side, we will place loneliness, an experience we need to understand and address with compassion. On the other side, we will place solitude, an experience we need to reclaim, celebrate, and master as a skill for a happy life. Our goal here is simple: to dismantle the stigma of being alone so that you can begin to see it not as a weakness, but as a source of incredible strength. To understand why this great mix-up happened, we have to look back, way back. For thousands and thousands of years, human beings were not built to be alone. Our survival depended on the tribe, the group, the community. Being part of a group meant protection from predators, help in finding food, and support in raising children. To be cast out from the group, to be left alone, was essentially a death sentence. This ancient fear is hardwired into our DNA. Our brains developed a kind of alarm system, a deep, primal instinct that screams danger when we sense separation from the group. So, for a very long time, being alone was something to be feared for very practical, life or death reasons. The problem is, while our world has changed dramatically, that ancient alarm system has not. We no longer live in small tribes where exile means certain death, but our brains can still react as if it does. Now, let us fast forward to the world we live in today. This ancient biological fear is amplified 1,000 times over by our modern culture. Think about the stories we are told from the moment we are young. In movies, the character who is always alone is often portrayed as strange, sad, or even sinister. The romantic comedy plot almost always ends with the main character finding someone so they never have to be alone again. The message, repeated over and over, is that happiness is found in other people, and that being by yourself is the state you should be trying to escape. Songs on the radio cry out about the pain of being alone, of nights spent waiting by the phone. Social media has taken this to an entirely new level. We scroll through endless feeds of people smiling together at parties, on vacation, at dinner. It creates a powerful illusion that everyone else is constantly surrounded by loving friends and family, living a vibrant social life. When we then find ourselves sitting at home alone on a Friday night, our ancient brain's alarm system starts to ring, and the cultural messages we have absorbed all our lives rush in to tell us that something is wrong with us. We see a picture of a group of friends laughing, and we feel a pang of something missing. That feeling, that painful ache of disconnection, is loneliness. Let us take a closer look at this unwanted guest. Loneliness is not about the number of people around you. This is the most important thing to understand. You can be in the most crowded room in the world, at a loud party, or a bustling family gathering, and feel profoundly, crushingly lonely. It is a feeling of being invisible, of not being truly seen or understood. It is a hunger for meaningful connection that is not being fed. Imagine being incredibly thirsty while floating in the middle of the ocean. There is water everywhere, but none of it can quench your thirst. That is what loneliness can feel like. It is a deep, internal state, a subjective feeling. It has nothing to do with how many friends you have on social media or how many contacts are in your phone. It is about the quality of your connections, not the quantity. The science behind this is fascinating and helps us understand why loneliness feels so physically painful. Researchers, like the late, great Dr. John Cacioppo, who dedicated his life to studying this, found that chronic loneliness has a real and measurable impact on our bodies. When you feel lonely for a long time, your body goes into a state of high alert. It is that ancient survival mechanism kicking in, perceiving a threat because you are separated from the tribe. This triggers the release of stress hormones like cortisol. Think of it like a smoke detector that is always going off in your house. At first, it is just annoying, but over time, that constant state of alarm starts to wear everything down. Chronic loneliness is linked to a whole host of health problems: poor sleep, a weakened immune system, increased inflammation, and even a higher risk of heart disease. So when you feel that ache of loneliness, it is not just in your head. It is a real biological signal. It is your body and brain telling you that a fundamental human need, the need for genuine connection, is not being met. It is a signal that deserves to be listened to, not ignored or shamed. You would not shame yourself for feeling hungry. You would find some food. In the same way, we must learn to see loneliness as a signal to seek out meaningful connection. Now, let us turn our attention to the other side of that line we drew in the sand. Let us talk about solitude. If loneliness is the pain of being alone when you do not want to be, solitude is the joy of being alone when you choose to be. It is the complete opposite experience. It is not an absence of others. It is the presence of yourself. It is a deliberate, voluntary act of stepping away from the noise of the world to spend quality time with the one person you will be with for your entire life, you. This element of choice is the magic ingredient. It is what transforms the experience from something negative into something incredibly positive and restorative. Think about the feeling of coming home after a long, exhausting day of work and social obligations. You close the door, take a deep breath, and feel a wave of relief wash over you. That feeling of peace, of being in your own space, on your own terms, is a taste of solitude. It is a chosen sanctuary. It is a conversation with yourself. It is a feeling of wholeness, of being complete just as you are, without needing anyone else to validate you in that moment. Where loneliness feels like an empty ache, solitude feels like a peaceful fullness. It is not about escaping the world. It is about grounding yourself so that you can engage with the world in a more meaningful way when you return. Just as science shows us the dangers of loneliness, it also reveals the incredible benefits of choosing solitude. When we are constantly interacting with other people, our brains are working hard. We are reading social cues, thinking about what to say next, managing impressions. It is cognitively demanding. Think of your social energy as a battery. Every interaction, even positive ones, uses a little bit of that battery's power. Solitude is how you plug yourself in and recharge. It gives your mind a chance to rest from the constant demands of social performance. This is why you can feel so drained after a party, even if you had a great time. Your social battery is depleted. Time alone is essential to getting it back to 100%. Furthermore, solitude is the breeding ground for self-reflection and clarity. When you are surrounded by the noise and opinions of others, it can be very difficult to hear your own inner voice. What do you truly want? How do you really feel about a situation? What are your core values? It is only in the quiet of solitude that the answers to these profound questions can surface. It is in these moments of quiet that you can process your emotions, make sense of your day, and connect with your own intuition. Without these moments, we can easily get swept up in other people's expectations and lose touch with who we really are. Solitude is the mirror in which we can see ourselves clearly, without any distortions. Solitude is also a powerhouse for creativity and problem solving. You have probably experienced this yourself. You are struggling with a difficult problem at work, and you just cannot seem to find a solution. You decide to take a break, maybe go for a walk by yourself or take a shower. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, the answer pops into your head. This is not a coincidence. Neuroscientists have a name for the state your brain enters when it is at rest and not focused on a specific task. They call it the default mode network, or DMN. When the DMN is active, your brain starts making connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. It is like a supercomputer running a background process, sorting through all the information you have taken in and finding new patterns. This is the source of aha moments, creative insights, and innovative solutions. But here is the key. The DMN only truly gets to work when you are not actively engaged with the outside world. It needs the quiet space of solitude to do its magic. When you allow yourself to be bored, you are actually giving your brain the raw material it needs to be brilliant. So, we have this painful state of loneliness, which is an unwanted disconnection, and this powerful state of solitude, which is a chosen connection with oneself. The problem is that many of us are so afraid of feeling the first one that we never allow ourselves to experience the second one. We fill every moment of potential quiet with noise and distraction. The moment we are alone, we reach for our phones, turn on the television, or call a friend, all in an effort to keep the potential feeling of loneliness at bay. In doing so, we rob ourselves of the incredible benefits of solitude. The first and most crucial step in the art of being alone is to learn to separate these two experiences in your mind and in your life. It is about understanding that a feeling of loneliness is simply a signal, not a judgment on your worth. And that choosing solitude is one of the greatest acts of self-care you can perform. Now we move from the what to the how. It is one thing to understand the difference intellectually, but it is another thing entirely to put it into practice. How do you start to embrace solitude when you have spent your whole life running from it? The key is to start small, with conscious, deliberate actions that slowly retrain your brain and reshape your relationship with being alone. The very first actionable step is to change your language. Words are incredibly powerful. They shape our perceptions and our reality. For the next week, I want you to pay close attention to how you talk about being alone, both to others and to yourself. When you have an evening with no plans, do you think, "Oh no, I am all alone tonight"? That phrasing automatically frames the experience as something negative, something lacking. I challenge you to reframe it. Instead, try saying, "I get to have some time for myself tonight," or "I am looking forward to a quiet evening to recharge." Notice the difference in how that feels. The first version sounds like a punishment. The second version sounds like a reward. This is not about lying to yourself. It is about consciously choosing to view this time as an opportunity rather than a failure. When a friend asks what you did over the weekend, do not say, "Oh, nothing, I was just alone." Say it with confidence. "I had a wonderfully relaxing weekend. I spent some time reading and recharging my batteries." By changing your language, you begin to change the entire emotional context of being by yourself. You start to signal to your own brain and to the world that your alone time is valuable and intentional. The second actionable step is what I call the 15-minute solitude challenge. For many of us, the idea of spending an entire evening alone without distractions can feel daunting. So we will start with just 15 minutes. That is it. Sometime this week, I want you to schedule 15 minutes of solitude into your day. Put it in your calendar as if it were an important meeting. When the time comes, find a comfortable place to sit, perhaps by a window. The most important rule is this: your phone must be in another room. No television, no laptop, no book, no music. Just you and the world for 15 minutes. Set a timer so you are not tempted to check the time. Now, what do you do for these 15 minutes? You can simply sit. You can look out the window and notice the details you have never seen before, like the way the leaves move on a tree or the patterns of the clouds. You can close your eyes and just listen to the sounds around you, the hum of the refrigerator, the distant traffic, the bird song. Or you can focus on the physical sensation of your breath going in and out. I will be honest with you. The first time you do this, it might feel incredibly strange. You might feel bored. You might feel restless. Your mind might race with a million thoughts. That is completely normal. The goal of this exercise is not to achieve some magical state of inner peace. The goal is simply to practice. It is to sit with yourself without an escape route and prove to yourself that you can do it. It is about building your tolerance for quiet, 1 minute at a time. Think of it as a workout for your solitude muscle. The first time you go to the gym, you cannot lift the heaviest weights. You start small. This is the same principle. 15 minutes. That is your first rep. Once you become more comfortable with short bursts of quiet, the third actionable step is to plan a date with yourself. The purpose of this is to make your alone time something you actively plan and look forward to. It reinforces the idea that this is a chosen, positive experience. What would you do on a date with someone you really wanted to get to know? Apply that same logic to yourself. Schedule it in advance. It could be something simple. Take yourself to a coffee shop you have been wanting to try, but instead of scrolling through your phone, bring a journal and just observe the world around you. Go to a museum or an art gallery by yourself and allow yourself to wander at your own pace, spending as much or as little time in front of each piece as you wish, with no one else's agenda to worry about. Take yourself to a park for a walk, or pack a small lunch and have a picnic for one. You could even go to see a movie by yourself. It might feel strange at first, but it can be an incredibly liberating experience to react to a film completely on your own terms, laughing or crying without any self-consciousness. The key to a successful solo date is to treat it with the same importance as a date with another person. Get ready for it. Choose something you genuinely enjoy, and give yourself your full attention during that time. This practice powerfully reframes alone time from a state of lacking a partner to a state of being your own partner. Finally, we need a tool to handle those moments when, despite our best intentions, that old, familiar feeling of loneliness creeps in. This is our fourth actionable step, the notice and name technique. Imagine you are in the middle of your 15-minute solitude challenge, and suddenly you feel that pang in your chest, that anxious thought that says, "I am so alone." The instinctive reaction is to fight that feeling, to push it away, or to immediately grab your phone to make it stop. This technique asks you to do the opposite. In your mind, simply notice the feeling and give it a name without judgment. You can say to yourself, that is the feeling of loneliness. I notice it. That is all. You are not the feeling. You are the one who is noticing the feeling. By naming it, you create a little bit of space between yourself and the emotion. You shift from being consumed by it to being an observer of it. After you have noticed and named it, gently redirect your attention back to your breath or to the sights and sounds around you. What this teaches you over time is that feelings, even uncomfortable ones like loneliness, are like clouds passing in the sky. They come and they go. They are not permanent, and they do not have to control you. You do not need to panic and reach for a distraction every time a lonely thought appears. You can simply notice it, let it be there, and watch it float by. This is an incredibly empowering skill that lies at the heart of building emotional resilience. Your relationship with being alone is exactly that, a relationship. It needs time, effort, and patience to develop. You are unlearning years of cultural conditioning and rewiring ancient survival instincts. It will not happen overnight. There will be moments of discomfort, moments of boredom, and moments where the pull of distraction feels overwhelming. But with these small, consistent steps, you will begin to change that relationship. You will start to discover the peace, clarity, and strength that are waiting for you in the quiet. You will prove to yourself that your own company is not a punishment, but a gift. Learning to be alone is not about rejecting the world. It is about learning to stand solid on your own 2 feet so that you can meet the world from a place of fullness, not emptiness. It is learning to be free. As we close this chapter, I want you to hold on to this one central idea. Loneliness is a lack, but solitude is a presence. They may look similar from the outside, a person sitting by themselves, but internally they are worlds apart. One is a cage of disconnection, the other is a key to freedom. Our journey together is about handing you that key. We have now redefined what it means to be alone, and we have our first set of tools to begin practicing this new skill. But to truly master it, we must now turn and face the very thing we have been running from. We must be willing to confront the silence itself and understand why it can feel so terrifying. In the next chapter, we will walk directly into that fear. We will explore the noise we use to protect ourselves and discover what happens when we finally dare to turn it all off. Chapter 2. The Fear of Silence. Why we run from ourselves. In our last chapter, we drew a bold line between the painful ache of loneliness and the profound power of solitude. We made a promise to ourselves to stop confusing the two, to start seeing our time alone not as a punishment, but as a precious opportunity. We even took our first small practical steps by reframing our language and attempting the 15-minute solitude challenge. And perhaps during those 15 minutes, you felt a sense of peace. But it is more likely that you felt something else entirely. A restlessness, an agitation, a powerful, almost magnetic pull to reach for your phone, to turn on the television, to do anything at all to fill the quiet. If you felt that, I want to say 2 things. First, you are not alone in that feeling. And second, congratulations. You have just come face to face with one of the most powerful forces in modern life, the fear of silence. This chapter is about walking directly into that fear. We are going to explore, with honesty and without judgment, why we run from ourselves. We will look at the sophisticated and ever-present noise machine of the external world, and then we will turn our gaze inward to the even louder noise we carry inside our own minds. This is not about shaming ourselves for seeking distraction. It is about understanding the mechanics of our own escape so that we can finally, consciously, choose to stay. Because within that silence, we fear so much lies everything we are searching for: our truth, our peace, and our power. To find it, we must first be brave enough to face the quiet. Let us begin with the world outside of us, the world that has become a relentless 24-hour-a-day symphony of distraction. We are living in an age that has declared war on empty space, on quiet moments, on boredom. Every single second of our potential downtime has become a commodity, a blank space that corporations and advertisers are fighting to colonize with their content. Think about your day. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, you might reach for your phone. You scroll through news headlines, social media updates, and emails, flooding your brain with information and other people's thoughts before you have even had a chance to have one of your own. You get in the car to go to work, and you immediately turn on the radio or a podcast. You stand in line for coffee, and you pull out your phone to play a game or check your notifications. You have a few minutes of downtime at your desk, and you open a new tab to watch a quick video or read an article. Even our moments of leisure are structured and filled. We binge-watch entire seasons of television shows, our attention held captive by algorithmically designed cliffhangers. The silence is no longer a natural part of our environment. It is something we have to actively seek out and protect, like a rare and endangered species. This constant stream of noise is not accidental. It is the result of a massive trillion-dollar industry known as the attention economy. In this economy, your attention is the most valuable resource. Every app on your phone, every website you visit, is engineered with the specific goal of capturing as much of your attention as possible and holding on to it for as long as possible. They employ teams of psychologists and neuroscientists to design features that exploit the quirks of our human brains. The infinite scroll on social media ensures there is never a natural stopping point, short-circuiting the part of your brain that would normally say, "Okay, I am done now." The little red dot of a notification is designed to trigger a sense of urgency and curiosity, a tiny shot of anxiety that can only be relieved by clicking it. Every like, every comment, every new follower delivers a small hit of dopamine, a chemical in our brain associated with pleasure and reward. It is the same chemical released when we eat delicious food, exercise, or receive a compliment. These platforms have essentially turned our social and informational lives into a giant slot machine. We pull the lever by refreshing our feed, and we get a small, unpredictable reward. This process is incredibly addictive. We are not weak-willed or undisciplined. We are up against a system that has been masterfully designed to hack our own biology. The consequence of living inside this giant, ever-present noise machine is that we have become profoundly uncomfortable with its absence. Our brains have become conditioned to a high level of stimulation. When that stimulation is suddenly taken away, it can feel like a kind of withdrawal. It feels like boredom, and we have been taught that boredom is the ultimate enemy. We think of boredom as a sign that we are wasting our time, that we are unproductive or uninteresting. But what if boredom is not an enemy at all? What if it is a gateway? Think about what happens when you allow yourself to be bored. Your mind begins to wander. It starts to daydream. It makes connections between old ideas and new ones. It starts to talk to itself. Boredom is the soil in which the seeds of creativity and self-reflection are planted. But we rarely allow that soil to be fallow for long enough for anything to grow. The moment we feel the slightest twinge of boredom, we reach for the nearest digital pacifier to soothe it away. We have, in effect, forgotten how to be bored. And in doing so, we have forgotten how to be alone with our own thoughts. To begin reclaiming our minds from this external noise, we must first become aware of how deeply it has infiltrated our lives. I want you to try a simple but powerful exercise I call the noise audit. For one single day, I want you to be a detective of your own attention. You will need a small notebook or a notes app on your phone. Your mission is to simply observe and record every time you reach for a source of external noise or distraction. Do not try to change your behavior. Do not judge yourself. Just observe. When you wake up, do you grab your phone? Make a note. When you are eating breakfast, is the television on? Make a note. Every time you pull out your phone while waiting in line, or sitting on the bus, or during a commercial break, just make a little tally mark. Note the podcasts, the music, the videos, the endless scrolling. At the end of the day, look at your notes. The results will likely shock you. You will see, in black and white, how few moments of your day are spent in genuine quiet. This is not an exercise in guilt. It is an exercise in awareness. You cannot solve a problem you do not understand. The noise audit is your first step in understanding just how much of your mental space is being occupied by forces outside of yourself. It is the diagnostic test that shows you exactly where your precious attention is going. Once you have this awareness, you can begin to make small, conscious choices to reclaim some of that space. But as powerful as the external noise machine is, it is often just a cover for something much more intimidating: the noise inside our own heads. This is the real reason we run. We are not just running from boredom. We are running from what boredom reveals. We are running from ourselves. When you turn off the television, put down the phone and sit in the quiet, you are left alone with your thoughts and your feelings. And for many of us, that is a terrifying place to be. The silence acts like a giant magnifying glass, amplifying the whispers of our inner world until they become too loud to ignore. It is in the quiet that the difficult questions surface. the ones we have been successfully avoiding with our busy schedules and endless distractions. Questions like, am I truly happy in my career, or am I just going through the motions? Is my relationship nurturing me, or is it draining me? Am I living a life that feels authentic to me, or am I living the life that someone else expects of me? Am I proud of the person I am becoming? These are the profound, life-altering questions that shape our destiny. But they are also deeply uncomfortable. They demand honesty, and they might lead to answers that require us to make difficult, scary changes. It is often far easier to drown out these questions with the noise of another podcast or another television series than it is to sit with the discomfort of their potential answers. Alongside these big, uncomfortable questions, the silence also introduces us to perhaps the most challenging roommate we will ever have, our inner critic. We all have one. It is that voice in our head that seems to have a PhD in our own failures and insecurities. It is the voice that replays our most embarrassing moments in high definition, right as we are trying to fall asleep. It is the voice that compares our real, messy lives to the curated highlight reels of others on social media and finds us lacking. It is the voice that whispers, "You are not smart enough. You are not attractive enough. You are not successful enough. You will never achieve your dreams." This inner critic is a master of criticism, judgment, and fear-mongering. When we are surrounded by the distractions of daily life, we can often keep its volume turned down. We are too busy to pay it much attention. But when we step into solitude, we are suddenly trapped in a room with our harshest judge, and there is nowhere to hide. The critic takes center stage, and its voice can be relentless. It is no wonder that we instinctively reach for a distraction. Who would voluntarily choose to sit and be verbally abused? Running from the silence is, for many of us, a desperate act of self-preservation, an attempt to escape the relentless monologue of our own inner critic. Furthermore, the quiet is where our unprocessed emotions come to the surface. Throughout our lives, we accumulate emotional baggage. The grief from a loss we never fully mourned, the anger from a betrayal we buried, the regret from a mistake we refuse to forgive ourselves for. We push these feelings down because they are painful. We tell ourselves we are over it, or that we do not have time to deal with it. We use busyness and distraction like a giant lid, trying to keep all of these bubbling, volatile emotions contained. But they do not go away. They just simmer beneath the surface, draining our energy and influencing our behavior in ways we do not even understand. When we enter into solitude, we are essentially lifting that lid. The silence creates a space for these long suppressed emotions to finally rise to the surface. This can feel overwhelming. We might suddenly feel a wave of sadness or a surge of anger, and we have no idea where it is coming from. Our immediate reaction is to slam the lid back on, to find a distraction that will push the feeling back down into the darkness where it belongs. We run from the silence because we are afraid of the emotional storms that might be waiting for us there. So how do we stop running? How do we learn to sit in the quiet, even when it is filled with uncomfortable questions, a harsh inner critic, and painful emotions? We do it by changing our relationship with our inner world. Instead of seeing these difficult thoughts and feelings as enemies to be defeated or escaped, we must learn to see them as messengers to be understood. Let us explore a powerful technique for this, a counterintuitive practice I call the welcome mat exercise. The next time you sit in silence and one of these inner monsters appears, whether it is a critical thought or a difficult emotion, I want you to try something radical. Instead of fighting it or running from it, I want you to mentally roll out a welcome mat for it. Imagine the thought or feeling is a visitor at your door. You do not have to let it take over your whole house, but you are going to invite it in for a moment to hear what it has to say. Let us say your inner critic shows up and says, "You really messed up that presentation at work today. Everyone thinks you are an idiot." The old response would be to either argue with it, "No, I did not," or to distract yourself immediately, "I need to watch something funny." The welcome mat approach is different. You sit with the thought. You say to it silently, "Welcome. I see you. Thank you for sharing." Then you get curious. You can ask it a question. What are you trying to protect me from? You see, the inner critic, as harsh as it sounds, often has a misguided protective intention. It is trying to protect you from future failure, from embarrassment, from rejection. The critic who says, "Everyone thinks you are an idiot," is probably terrified that you will be judged and cast out. By asking it what it is trying to protect you from, you shift from being its victim to being its compassionate investigator. You might realize the underlying message is, "I am scared of not being good enough." Once you understand the fear beneath the criticism, the critic loses much of its power. You can then thank it for trying to protect you and reassure it, saying, "Thank you for looking out for me. I am safe. I will learn from this experience, and I will be okay." This process takes the venom out of the critic's sting and transforms it from a monster into a scared part of yourself that needs reassurance. The same goes for difficult emotions. When sadness appears, welcome it. Hello, sadness. What are you here to tell me? What needs my attention? Perhaps it is here to tell you that you miss someone, or that you are feeling disconnected. By listening to the message, you can then take action to meet that need, instead of just trying to numb the feeling. This process of turning towards our inner experience, rather than running from it, has a fascinating connection to the way our brains are wired. Scientists have identified a network in the brain that becomes active when we are not focused on an external task. It is called the default mode network, or DMN. This is your brain's idle mode, but it is anything but idle. The DMN is responsible for incredibly important functions. It is what allows you to reflect on yourself, to think about your past and plan for your future, to understand the perspectives of other people, and to have creative breakthroughs. It is the part of the brain that is active when you are daydreaming or lost in thought. In essence, the DMN is the neurological home of your sense of self. Here is the crucial part. If your relationship with yourself is fraught with anxiety, self-criticism, and unprocessed emotional pain, then when your DMN activates in moments of quiet, it will simply churn through that negative material. It becomes an anxiety-generating machine. This is the biological reason why the silence can feel so awful. It is not the silence itself, but what your brain automatically does with it. The beautiful news is that you can retrain your DMN. Practices like the welcome mat exercise and mindfulness in general are like taking your DMN to the gym. Every time you sit in the quiet and compassionately observe your thoughts without getting swept away by them, you are rewiring this powerful network. You are teaching it that the silence is a safe space. You are creating new neural pathways, strengthening the parts of your brain associated with emotional regulation and self-awareness, and weakening the parts associated with a panicked reaction. Over time, as you heal your relationship with your inner world, the DMN transforms. Instead of being a source of anxiety, it becomes a source of insight, creativity, and peace. The silence stops being a scary, chaotic place and starts to feel like coming home. This is not just a poetic idea, it is a neurological reality. You have the power to change the very way your brain experiences the quiet. Now let us build on this understanding with more practical steps to help you befriend the silence. The first is an upgrade to our 15-minute solitude challenge. As you continue to practice sitting in the quiet, you will inevitably have moments where your mind feels like a hurricane of thoughts. In these moments, it is easy to feel like you are failing. To counter this, we will introduce a grounding technique called mindful observation. When the inner noise becomes too loud, you are going to intentionally shift your attention to your 5 senses. It is a simple way to pull yourself out of the storm of your thoughts and anchor yourself in the present moment. You can do this with your eyes open. Silently, name to yourself 5 things you can see in the room. Notice their color, shape, and texture without judgment. Just see them. Then, name 4 things you can feel: the sensation of your feet on the floor, the texture of your clothes on your skin, the temperature of the air. Then, name 3 things you can hear: the distant traffic, the hum of a fan, your own breathing. Then, name 2 things you can smell: perhaps the faint scent of coffee, or the clean laundry smell on your shirt. Finally, name one thing you can taste, the lingering taste of your last meal, or just the neutral taste of your own mouth. This simple exercise can take less than a minute, but it is incredibly powerful. It acts as a circuit breaker for anxious thought loops and brings you right back into the reality of the present moment, which is almost always a safe place to be. The second practical step is to create pockets of silence in your daily routine. The idea of finding long stretches of time for solitude can be intimidating. So instead, we will focus on finding the small gaps that already exist in your day and transforming them into moments of quiet. For example, your morning commute. Many of us automatically turn on the radio or a podcast. For 1 week, try the unplugged commute. Drive or ride in silence. Just observe the world going by. Notice your thoughts. It might feel strange at first, but it is a powerful way to start or end your day with a connection to yourself rather than a connection to external noise. Another opportunity is mealtime. If you eat alone, resist the urge to watch videos or scroll through your phone. Try having a silent meal. Pay attention to the food, its colors, its smells, its textures, its tastes. This not only creates a pocket of silence, but also turns a routine act into a rich, sensory experience. Look for other small pockets. Waiting in line, walking from your car to your office, the few minutes before you fall asleep. By intentionally choosing silence in these small moments, you make it a familiar and normal part of your day, rather than a scary and alien experience. Let me share a story to illustrate this journey. Consider a woman we will call Sarah. Sarah was a podcast addict. She listened to them while she was cooking, cleaning, exercising, and driving. She even fell asleep to them. She told herself she was learning, being productive. But the truth was, Sarah was running. She was in a job that paid the bills, but left her feeling empty and uninspired. The thought of quitting was terrifying, so she drowned out the quiet voice of her own dissatisfaction with the loud voices of podcast hosts. Her first attempt at a silent walk in the park was a disaster. Within 2 minutes, her inner critic was screaming at her about all the productive things she could be doing. The anxiety was so intense she had to turn back, but she did not give up. She decided to start smaller. She tried a 5-minute unplugged commute. It was hard, but she survived. The next day, she did it again. Slowly, she started using the mindful observation technique when the anxiety spiked. She would notice the color of the car in front of her, the feeling of the steering wheel in her hands. After a few weeks, she managed her first full, silent walk. During that walk, for the first time in a long time, she allowed herself to feel the full weight of her unhappiness about her job. It was painful, but on the other side of that pain was a new feeling: clarity. She realized she had been running not just from a feeling, but from a truth. That silent walk did not solve her career problem, but it was the first essential step. It allowed her to finally stop running and face the real issue. It was the beginning of her journey back to herself. Facing the silence is an act of profound courage. You are choosing to turn and face the very things you have been conditioned to avoid your entire life. It is a process of unlearning and rewiring. Be patient with yourself. Be compassionate with yourself. There is no finish line, no perfect state of inner peace to be achieved. There will always be uncomfortable thoughts and difficult emotions. The goal is not to eliminate them, but to change your relationship with them. The goal is to build a foundation of self-trust, to know in your bones that you are capable of weathering your own inner storms. Every time you choose to sit in the quiet for just 1 more minute, you are casting a vote for your own strength and resilience. You are telling yourself, I am not afraid of what is inside me. In this chapter, we have stared into the face of our fear of silence. We have named the external and internal forces that make us run, and we have equipped ourselves with the tools to help us stay. Now that we have found the courage to sit in the quiet room of our own being, we are ready for the next, most exciting step, turning on the lights to see who is actually there. In the next chapter, we will explore the incredible journey of self-discovery that begins when the noise finally fades away. We will learn how solitude acts as a mirror, allowing us to meet the person we have always been, waiting for us beneath the surface of it all. Chapter 3. The Mirror of Self. Getting to know who you really are. In our journey so far, we have taken two monumental steps. First, we carefully separated the concepts of loneliness and solitude, transforming our perception of being alone from a state of lack to a state of possibility. Then, we bravely faced the fear of silence. We looked directly at the external noise and the internal chaos that cause us to run, and we equipped ourselves with the tools and the courage to stay. We have chosen to sit in the quiet room of our own consciousness, even when it feels uncomfortable. And now, we arrive at the great reward for our courage. This chapter is about what we find in that quiet room. It is about the profound, life-changing process of self-discovery that can only happen in solitude. I want you to imagine that for your entire life, you have been looking at your reflection in a pool of turbulent, muddy water. You can see a vague outline, a distorted shape, but you can never see yourself clearly because the surface is constantly being disturbed by the ripples and opinions and expectations of others. Solitude is the act of allowing that water to become perfectly still. It is only then, when the surface is as smooth and clear as glass, that you can look down and see your own true reflection for the first time. Solitude is the mirror of the self. In the stillness, we begin the most important introduction of our lives. We get to meet the person we truly are, stripped of all the roles we play and all the masks we wear for the world. This is not about finding a new person. It is about coming home to the person who has been there all along. Let us begin by talking about those masks. From a very young age, we learn that the world expects us to be certain things for certain people. We learn to perform. At home, we might wear the mask of the good daughter or the responsible son, carefully behaving in ways that we know will earn our parents' approval. At school, we might have worn the mask of the smart kid or the class clown or the athlete, each persona coming with its own set of unwritten rules and expectations. We enter the professional world, and we put on our work mask. We become the ambitious go-getter, or the reliable team player, or the tough boss. We might adopt a more serious tone, use a more professional vocabulary, and suppress our more playful or vulnerable sides. With our friends, we might wear the mask of the funny one, always ready with a joke, or the listener, the one everyone comes to with their problems. Even in our romantic relationships, we often start by wearing a mask of our most charming, witty, and put-together self. These masks are not inherently bad. In many ways, they are a necessary tool for navigating a complex social world. They are a form of adaptation, a way of fitting in and meeting the demands of different situations. They are born from a deep, primal human need for belonging and acceptance. The problem arises when we wear these masks for so long that we forget what our own face looks like underneath. The performance becomes so second nature that we lose touch with where the mask ends and our true self begins. We start to believe we are the mask. We spend so much energy maintaining these different personas, trying to be what everyone else needs us to be, that we become utterly exhausted. It can lead to a deep, nagging feeling of being a fraud, a sense of inauthenticity that hums beneath the surface of our lives. We might find ourselves saying yes to things we want to say no to, simply because it is what the good friend mask would do. We might pursue a career path that makes us miserable because it is what the successful person mask demands. We live our lives based on an external script written by the expectations of others, and we slowly lose the ability to write our own. This is a quiet and insidious kind of suffering. You can have a life that looks perfect on the outside, a life that checks all the right boxes, and yet feel a profound sense of emptiness, a feeling that the person living this life is not really you. Solitude is the sacred space where we can finally take all the masks off. It is the dressing room of the soul. When you are truly alone, there is no one to perform for. There is no one to impress. There is no one whose expectations you need to meet. The pressure is off. In these moments of quiet, You can finally let go of the exhausting act of being the employee, the parent, the friend, the partner. You can just be. At first, this can feel surprisingly vulnerable, even strange. You might find yourself asking, without all these roles, who am I? This question is not a sign that something is wrong. It is the sign that the journey of self-discovery has truly begun. As you spend more time in solitude, you begin to see which parts of your personas are authentic and which are purely performance. You might realize that your work mask is all about being serious and analytical, but your true self is actually deeply creative and playful. You might discover that the mask of the life of the party is just a cover for a more introverted nature that craves deep, one-on-one conversation. Solitude gives you the space to acknowledge these hidden parts of yourself, to honor them, and to begin integrating them into your life. It is a process of reclaiming all the pieces of yourself that you have suppressed in order to fit in. To make this process more tangible, I want to introduce an actionable step called the Mask Inventory. This is a private journaling exercise designed to bring awareness to the different roles you play. Sometime this week, find a quiet half hour for yourself. At the top of a page, write down the different masks you wear. You might have work self, family self, friend self, partner self, and so on. Now, under each heading, I want you to answer a few questions. First, what are the primary qualities of this mask? For work self, it might be efficient, serious, ambitious. Second, what does this mask hide? Perhaps your work self hides your insecurity or your quirky sense of humor. Third, what is the main goal of this mask? For the family self, the goal might be to keep the peace or to make my parents proud. Finally, and most importantly, ask yourself, which parts of this mask feel like the real me and which parts feel like a performance? Be brutally honest with yourself. This is not about judging your masks as good or bad. It is about creating a clear and conscious inventory. The awareness that comes from this exercise is the first step toward living a more authentic life. You will start to notice in your daily interactions when you are putting on a mask, and with that awareness comes a choice. You can begin to consciously choose to let a little more of your true self shine through, to be a bit more playful at work, or a bit more honest with your family. The goal is not to eliminate the masks entirely, but to wear them more loosely, and to never again forget the true face that lies beneath. As we begin to shed our masks, something remarkable happens. The noise of other people's expectations begins to fade, and for the first time, we can start to hear a much quieter, more subtle voice. The voice of our own intuition. Think of your life as being filled with hundreds of loud radio stations. You have Radio Mum, broadcasting what she thinks you should do with your life. You have Radio Boss, telling you what you need to do to get ahead. You have Radio Social Media, shouting about what your life is supposed to look like. All these stations are broadcasting at full volume all day long. But you have your own radio station too. Let us call it Radio U. This station does not shout. It broadcasts on a very low, quiet frequency. It is the voice of your gut feeling, your inner wisdom, your intuition. When all the other stations are blaring, it is impossible to hear the signal from Radio U. Solitude is the act of systematically turning down the volume on all the external stations, creating the silence necessary to finally tune in to your own frequency. What is this intuition? It is not magic. It is a powerful form of intelligence that our culture often dismisses. Your brain is constantly processing vast amounts of information, much more than your conscious mind is aware of. It picks up on subtle cues, patterns, and past experiences. Your intuition, or your gut feeling, is your subconscious mind communicating its complex analysis to you in a simple, direct way. It is that feeling of knowing without knowing how you know. It is the feeling in your gut that tells you a certain situation feels off, or that a particular person feels trustworthy. It is the quiet whisper that suggests you should take a chance on a new opportunity, even when it does not make perfect logical sense. For years, you may have been taught to ignore this voice, to favor logic, reason, and the opinions of others. You might have been told that your gut feelings are unreliable or irrational, so you learned to override them. You took the job that looked good on paper, even though it felt wrong. You stayed in the relationship that made logical sense, even though your intuition was screaming at you to leave. Every time we ignore our intuition, we weaken our connection to it. The signal gets fainter and fainter until we can barely hear it at all. Solitude is the training ground for relearning how to hear and trust this inner guidance system. When you sit in the quiet, free from the need to justify your feelings to anyone else, you create a space for your intuition to speak. The practical way to start building this skill is through an exercise I call the body compass. Our intuition often speaks to us through the physical sensations in our body. The body does not lie. This exercise will teach you to listen to its wisdom. Find a quiet place and think of a small, low-stakes decision you need to make. It could be something as simple as what to have for dinner, or whether to go to a social event this weekend. Close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. First, I want you to fully imagine making one choice. Let us say it is the choice to go to the party. Imagine getting ready, driving there, walking in, the conversations you will have. As you hold this scenario in your mind, scan your body from head to toe. What do you notice? Is there a tightness in your chest, a clenching in your stomach, a feeling of heaviness or dread? Or do you feel a sense of lightness, openness, or excitement? There is no need to analyze it. Just notice the physical sensations. Now, clear your mind. Take another deep breath. And now, fully imagine making the other choice, staying home. Imagine what that would be like. Perhaps reading a book, watching a movie, having a quiet evening. Scan your body again. What sensations are present now? Is there a feeling of relief, of comfort, of peace? Or is there a feeling of boredom or restlessness? Your body is acting like a compass. Sensations of openness, lightness, and expansion are your compass pointing north, towards a yes. Sensations of tightness, heaviness, and contraction are your compass pointing south, towards a no. By practicing this with small decisions, you build a new language of communication between your conscious mind and your intuitive, subconscious self. You are building a track record of listening to your gut and seeing the results. Over time, you will gain the confidence to use this body compass for bigger, more important life decisions. You will start to trust that quiet, inner voice as a valid and incredibly valuable source of intelligence. Your intuition is your most loyal advisor. It has no agenda other than your own well-being. Learning to hear it is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself, and it is a gift that is found almost exclusively in the quiet sanctuary of solitude. As you shed your masks and tune into your intuition, another wonderful thing begins to happen in solitude. You start to remember what you love. I want you to think of yourself as an archaeologist and your joy as a buried treasure. Throughout our lives, our authentic passions and hobbies get buried under thick layers of dust and debris. The layer of adult responsibilities, which tells us we are too busy for fun. The layer of practicality, which tells us that if something does not make money, it is a waste of time. The layer of the inner critic, which tells us we are not talented enough to even try. So we stop. We stop drawing because we are not a professional artist. We stop playing the guitar because we are not going to be a rock star. We stop writing stories because we are not going to be a published author. We trade the joy of pure, purposeless play for the serious business of being a grown-up. And in the process, a vital part of our soul goes dormant. Solitude is your archaeological dig site. It provides the time, the space, and the permission to gently brush away those layers of dust and rediscover the treasures of what you truly love to do. This is not about starting a side hustle or becoming an expert. This is about reconnecting with the state of flow. That magical experience of being so absorbed in an activity that you lose all track of time. It is about doing something for the pure, intrinsic joy of the process itself, with no audience, no judgment, and no goal other than your own delight. When you are alone, the pressure to be good at something vanishes. You can sing off key in your living room. You can paint a terrible picture. You can write a silly poem, and it does not matter because it is just for you. This is an act of radical self-care. It is about feeding your soul, not just your resume. I want you to embark on your own personal archaeological dig with an exercise I call the joy list. Get a piece of paper and set a timer for 10 minutes. Your task is to brainstorm a list of anything and everything you have ever enjoyed doing or have ever been curious about trying. Do not censor yourself. Let the ideas flow. Think back to when you were a child. What did you love to do for hours on end? Building with Legos, climbing trees, making mud pies. Write it down. Think about your teenage years. Did you love tinkering with electronics, learning magic tricks, filling notebooks with poetry? Write it down. Think about things you see other people do and think, that looks like fun. Visiting a botanical garden, learning to bake bread, trying pottery. Write it down. Your goal is to get at least 20 items on this list. Let it be a mix of big things and small things, simple things and challenging things. After you have your list, I want you to pick just one small, easy thing from it. And your mission for your next solo date with yourself is to do that thing. If finger painting is on your list, go buy some cheap paints and make a glorious mess. If visiting the library is on your list, go and wander the aisles for an hour with no agenda. This is not about productivity. It is about remembering what it feels like to play. It is about reawakening the parts of you that have been asleep for too long. As you embark on this journey of unmasking, listening, and rediscovering, it is essential to have a way to process and integrate what you are learning. This brings us to our final, crucial tool for this chapter, the daily practice of the check-in. This is a simple 5-minute journaling practice that will act as your anchor and your guide. It is a structured conversation with yourself. Every day, preferably at the same time, you will sit down with a notebook and answer 3 simple questions. The first question is, how am I really feeling right now? The word really is the most important part of this question. So often, when someone asks how we are, our automatic response is fine or good or busy. We do it to others, and we do it to ourselves. This question invites you to go deeper, to scan your body and your emotional landscape and give an honest answer. Maybe the answer is, I feel anxious about my meeting tomorrow. Maybe it is, I feel a little sad and I am not sure why. Maybe it is, I feel surprisingly calm and content. Naming your emotions is a superpower. The simple act of putting a label on a feeling has been shown in neurological studies to reduce its intensity. It helps you move from being overwhelmed by an emotion to being an observer of it. It builds emotional intelligence. The second question is, what do I need today? This is a question of profound self-care. We spend so much of our lives anticipating and meeting the needs of others that we often completely ignore our own. This question forces you to pause and consider what would truly nourish you. And the answer is often very simple. Maybe what you need is a 10-minute walk in the fresh air. Maybe you need to drink a glass of water. Maybe you need to reach out to a friend for a quick chat. Or maybe what you need is 20 minutes of quiet time with no demands. By asking this question every day, you train yourself to be your own caregiver. You learn to meet your own needs instead of waiting for someone else to guess what they are. It shifts you from a passive recipient of care to an active agent of your own well-being. The third and final question is, what is one thing I am grateful for? This may sound like a cliché, but it is one of the most powerful and scientifically validated tools for increasing happiness. Our brains have a natural negativity bias. We are hardwired to scan for threats, problems, and dangers. This was great for our ancestors' survival, but in modern life, it often just leads to anxiety and dissatisfaction. A daily gratitude practice actively retrains your brain. It forces you to scan your day for the positives, for the small moments of beauty, kindness, and joy. It could be the taste of your morning coffee, a kind word from a colleague, the beauty of a sunset, or the comfort of your bed. By consistently looking for the good, you literally begin to rewire your brain to notice more of it. It does not erase the difficulties of life, but it creates a parallel track of awareness for the good that is also always present. This is the work we do in the mirror of solitude. We see our masks and learn to gently set them aside. We quiet the external noise and learn to hear the wisdom of our own intuition. We dig through the layers of responsibility and remember what brings us to life. And through a simple daily practice, we learn to check in with ourselves with honesty, care, and gratitude. This is not a one-time event. It is a lifelong relationship that you are building with yourself. It is a journey of coming home. You are not creating a new person. You are simply removing everything that is not you, so that the person you were always meant to be can finally shine through. As you become more familiar and more comfortable with your true self, you will begin to notice a new power stirring within you, a creative impulse, a desire to not just discover who you are, but to express who you are. Now that you are reacquainted with the artist, it is time to see what art you can create. In our next chapter, we will unlock the door to your inner creator and explore how solitude is the ultimate fuel for your imagination. Chapter 4. Unleashing your inner creator. How solitude fuels imagination. We have traveled a remarkable distance together on this inward journey. We began by drawing a clear, bright line between the pain of loneliness and the power of solitude. We then found the courage to face the silence, to sit within the storm of our own thoughts and feelings without running away. And in that newfound stillness, we came face to face with our own true reflection, learning to peel away the masks we wear for the world and hear the quiet whisper of our own intuition. You have begun the most important relationship of your life, the relationship with your authentic self. Now that you have been properly introduced to the artist within, it is time to explore the art that only you can create. This chapter is about unlocking the door to your inner creator. We are going to dismantle the pervasive myth that creativity is a loud, chaotic group activity and discover that it is in fact born in the quiet, fertile ground of solitude. For too long, we have associated emptiness with a lack of value. We see a blank page and feel anxiety. We experience a quiet moment and feel the urge to fill it. But what if that emptiness is not a void? What if it is a canvas? Solitude is not an empty space. It is an open space. It is the sanctuary where your imagination is finally free to stretch, to wander, to play, and to build worlds. It is the place where you can hear the faint, secret music of your own unique ideas. This is not just for painters, poets, or musicians. The creative force we are about to unleash is the very essence of human ingenuity. It is the power to solve problems, to invent new possibilities, and to add your own distinct color to the fabric of the world. Let us start by tearing down one of the biggest, most misleading monuments in the modern landscape of work and creativity, the corporate cult of the brainstorm. We have all been there. You are called into a conference room with a handful of colleagues. Someone stands at a whiteboard with a marker, and the leader declares, "Okay team, no bad ideas, let's brainstorm." The intention is good, but the reality is often a dismal failure. The loudest, most confident person in the room tends to dominate the conversation. Quieter, more introverted individuals who might have the most brilliant insights hesitate to speak up, fearing their idea is not fully formed or might be instantly shot down. The conversation can be hijacked by groupthink, where everyone starts to converge on the safest, most conventional ideas to avoid conflict or stand out too much. You leave the meeting an hour later with a whiteboard full of shallow, uninspired bullet points and a feeling of mental exhaustion. This model of creativity is based on a fundamental misunderstanding of how the human brain actually generates novel ideas. It confuses the performance of creativity with the process of creativity. Real, groundbreaking ideas are not shouted into existence in a crowded room. More often, they are whispered into being in the quiet solitude of a single, focused mind. To understand this, we need to look at the actual stages of the creative process, a model first laid out almost a century ago by a social psychologist named Graham Wallace, and which still holds true today. He identified 4 key stages. The first is preparation. This is the input phase, where you immerse yourself in the problem. You gather information, you research, you study, you talk to people, you fill your brain with all the raw materials. This can be an active and sometimes collaborative phase, but it is only the first step. The second, and arguably most crucial stage, is incubation. This is the part of the process our modern productivity-obsessed culture constantly tries to skip. Incubation is the act of stepping away from the problem completely. You stop consciously thinking about it. You go for a walk, you take a shower, you work on something else entirely. This is where solitude becomes a superpower. During this incubation period, your subconscious mind takes over. It begins to sift through all the information you gathered in the preparation phase, sorting, organizing, and looking for new connections. It is like a brilliant detective working on a case in the background while you go about your day. Remember the default mode network, or DMN, that we discussed in Chapter 2. That powerful part of your brain that activates when you are at rest. This is its time to shine. The DMN is the engine of incubation. Divide a page into 2 columns. In the first column, I want you to write down your self-critical thoughts, word for word. Do not censor them. Write down all the mean, judgmental things your inner critic is saying to you. Get it all out on paper. Now, in the second column, I want you to perform a powerful act of imagination. I want you to think of someone in your life who you love deeply and who you know loves you unconditionally. It could be a best friend, a grandparent, a partner. Now, imagine that this person came to you with the exact same problem or failure you are facing. Imagine them speaking your self-critical thoughts about themselves. What would you say to them? How would you respond? With kindness? With wisdom? With reassurance? Write down your response to this beloved friend in the second column. Write down exactly what you would say to comfort and support them. After you have written it, I want you to read it out loud to yourself. Let yourself really hear and absorb those words of kindness, perspective, and unconditional love. This exercise is incredibly powerful because it bypasses our own ingrained patterns of self-attack. It is often far easier for us to access our compassionate voice for others than for ourselves. By writing it down and reading it back, you are consciously taking that same compassionate energy and directing it inward. If you practice this consistently, you will literally begin to rewire your brain. You will be carving a new neural pathway from the well-worn road of self-criticism to the new, healing path of self-compassion. You will be learning, in a very practical way, how to become your own best friend. As we learn to soothe our bodies and speak to ourselves with kindness, we can begin to tackle another crucial aspect of resilience, expanding our capacity to sit with discomfort. Think of your emotional comfort zone as a small room. As long as you stay inside this room, everything feels fine. But the moment a difficult emotion like anxiety, sadness, boredom, or grief knocks on the door, you panic. You do whatever you can to avoid letting it in. This means your life becomes very small, dictated by the constant effort to avoid discomfort. Expanding your emotional resilience is like gradually expanding the size of that room. It is about learning that you can, in fact, sit with uncomfortable feelings without them destroying you. You learn that feelings are like weather patterns. They are temporary. They roll in. They might be intense for a while, but eventually they roll out again. You are the sky, not the weather. The goal is not to never feel discomfort. The goal is to increase your window of tolerance, the zone in which you can experience a difficult emotion without becoming completely overwhelmed or shutting down. Solitude is the safest possible environment to practice this. It is a controlled setting where you can intentionally expose yourself to small, manageable doses of discomfort, like a person with a fear of heights starting on the first step of a ladder, not the top of a skyscraper. This brings us to our third actionable step, a gentle visualization exercise called the feeling pendulum. Find a quiet place to sit by yourself. I want you to bring to mind a situation or feeling that is currently causing you a mild level of discomfort. Let us say it is a small worry about an upcoming task. I want you to allow yourself to feel the sensation of that worry in your body for just a few seconds. Maybe it is a tightness in your chest. Just notice it. This is swinging the pendulum gently into the zone of discomfort. Now, before it becomes overwhelming, I want you to intentionally shift your attention to something neutral or pleasant in your present moment experience. This could be the feeling of your feet planted firmly on the floor. It could be the sensation of a soft breeze from an open window. It could be the memory of a beautiful place you have visited. Focus on this pleasant or neutral sensation for about 30 seconds. This is swinging the pendulum back into your zone of comfort and safety. Then, gently, you can swing it back, allowing yourself to touch the uncomfortable feeling again for just a few seconds, and then swing it back to your safe anchor point. You can go back and forth a few times, gently and with full control. What this exercise teaches your nervous system, on a very deep level, is that you are in charge. It teaches you that you can touch your pain and then return to safety. It shows you that discomfort is not a permanent state you get trapped in. With practice, you will find that you can keep the pendulum in the zone of discomfort for a little longer each time without panicking. You are not trying to get rid of the feeling. You are increasing your capacity to be with it. You are expanding your room. You are growing your roots deeper into the earth. These three practices, self-soothing, self-compassion, and sitting with discomfort, are the pillars of emotional resilience. When you practice them in the sanctuary of your solitude, you are building something incredibly precious within yourself, a deep and unshakable core of self-reliance. This is not the cold, isolated self-reliance of someone who says, "I don't need anyone." It is the quiet, confident self-reliance of someone who knows, in their bones, that they have the inner resources to navigate whatever life brings their way. It is the deep self-trust that comes from having weathered your own inner storms and discovered that you are strong enough. This inner strength changes everything. It changes how you show up in your relationships. You begin to interact with people not from a place of desperate neediness, hoping they will fix or save you, but from a place of wholeness, wanting to share your life with them. It changes how you approach your work and your dreams. You become less afraid of failure and criticism because you know that you have the resilience to handle setbacks and the self-compassion to pick yourself back up again. You become your own anchor in the unpredictable sea of life. The winds will still blow, and the waves will still crash, but you will have a place of deep stillness and strength within you that is untouchable. You become your own safe harbor. You are learning not just to survive the storms, but to find the wisdom and strength that can only be forged within them. This unbreakable core is the ultimate gift of your solitude practice. It is the foundation upon which a brave, authentic, and joyfully resilient life is built. Chapter 6. Digital Solitude, Finding Quiet in a Noisy, Connected World. We have journeyed inward, braving the silence and greeting the true self we found waiting for us there. We have discovered the fertile, creative ground of our own imagination and begun to forge the unbreakable core of emotional resilience. It is what allows your brain to make those incredible leaps of logic, connecting a piece of information from one area of your knowledge with a piece from a completely different area, creating something new and unexpected. This leads directly to the third stage, illumination. This is the magical aha or eureka moment. It is the moment when, seemingly out of nowhere, the solution appears in your mind, fully formed. The detective in your subconscious has cracked the case and delivers the answer to your conscious awareness. This moment of illumination almost never happens when you are staring at the problem. It happens when you are in a state of relaxed solitude, when your DMN has been given the quiet space it needs to do its work. The fourth and final stage is verification. This is where you bring your idea back into the light. You test it, you refine it, you flesh it out, and you put it into practice. This stage can, once again, be collaborative. You might get feedback from others or work with a team to execute the idea, but the precious, fragile seed of the idea itself was almost certainly germinated in the quiet, protected soil of solitude and incubation. History is filled with stories of geniuses who understood this process intuitively. Albert Einstein, when he was struggling with the complex mathematics of his theory of general relativity, would often put down his work and play the violin. He was not procrastinating, he was incubating. He was giving his subconscious mind the space it needed to work on the problem. He famously said, "I think 99 times and find nothing. I stop thinking, swim in silence, and the truth comes to me." He knew that the answer was not to be found by forcing it, but by allowing it to emerge from the quiet. Sir Isaac Newton's legendary encounter with a falling apple, which supposedly sparked his theory of gravity, did not happen in a bustling Cambridge University hall. It happened while he was at home at Woolsthorpe Manor, living in isolation to escape the Great Plague of London. He was in a state of forced solitude, and it was during this period of intense, uninterrupted thought that he had some of the most profound scientific breakthroughs in human history. A more modern example is J.K. Rowling, who conceived of the entire world of Harry Potter while stuck on a delayed train between Manchester and London. She was alone with her thoughts for 4 hours with no working pen. Instead of getting frustrated, she simply allowed her imagination to run wild. In that quiet, contained space, a world of magic, friendship, and adventure was born. These are not just charming anecdotes, they are powerful demonstrations of a fundamental principle. The creative mind requires periods of quiet, uninterrupted solitude to do its most profound work. When you choose solitude, you are following in the footsteps of the greatest innovators in history. You are giving your own mind the same fertile conditions to create. Now, let's move from the stories of geniuses to your own creative potential. One of the biggest obstacles to creativity is the fear of failure. We are terrified of looking stupid. We have an idea, and our inner critic, that familiar voice from chapter 2, immediately jumps in with, "That will never work. That's a dumb idea," or "People will laugh at you." This fear of judgment can be paralyzing, especially when we are in the presence of others. It causes us to self-censor, to kill our most original ideas before they even have a chance to breathe, all because we are afraid of what someone else might think. We stick to the safe, the conventional, the already approved, because the social risk of true originality is too high. Solitude is the ultimate antidote to this fear. It is a judgment-free zone. When you are alone, you remove the audience. There is no one to impress, no one to disappoint, no one to laugh at your bad ideas. You are finally free to be a beginner, to be clumsy, to experiment, and most importantly, to fail. This freedom is not just a comfort. It is an absolute requirement for the creative process. Creativity is not a straight line from A to B. It is a messy, meandering, and often chaotic exploration. It involves trying 100 things that do not work to find the one thing that does. Think of a sculptor staring at a rough, uncarved block of marble. They cannot create the statue with a single, perfect strike of the chisel. They have to chip away countless wrong pieces of stone, making a huge mess on the floor to slowly reveal the form that is hidden within. If the sculptor were afraid of chipping away a wrong piece, they would never be able to start. Solitude is your private studio. It is the space where you can make a glorious mess without fear. You can write a terrible first draft of a story, paint a picture with clashing colors, or come up with a business idea that seems ridiculous. It does not matter. In this safe space, there are no bad ideas. There are only stepping stones. Each failed experiment teaches you something. Each bad idea contains the seed of a better one. By giving yourself the freedom to fail in private, you build the creative confidence to eventually succeed in public. To put this powerful principle into practice, I want you to create a specific tool for embracing imperfection. This is our first actionable step for this chapter, and it is called the Junk Drawer Journal. I want you to get a dedicated notebook. It can be a cheap one from the corner store. In fact, the cheaper and less precious it feels, the better. This notebook is not for your profound thoughts or your brilliant, polished ideas. This is your junk drawer. Its sole purpose is to be a place where you are not just allowed, but required to be messy, silly, and imperfect. There are a few rules for your junk drawer journal. First, there is no judgment allowed. Whatever you write or draw in it, you are not allowed to criticize it. Second, it is for your eyes only. This is crucial. Knowing that no one else will ever see it is what grants you the freedom to be truly uninhibited. Third, you should aim to fill at least 1 page a day. This is not about quality. It is about quantity and consistency. It is about exercising your creative muscle. So, what do you put in this journal? Anything and everything. You could use it to write down your dreams as soon as you wake up, without trying to make sense of them. You could use it to write down 10 completely ridiculous and impractical inventions, like a hat that butters your toast, or a device that translates what your cat is thinking. You could fill a page with doodles and squiggles, without trying to make them look like anything. You could write a terrible poem. You could write down a list of questions you do not have the answers to, like, why is the sky blue? Or, what does my dog think about all day? The purpose of these prompts is to bypass your inner editor and just get your creative mind moving. It is a warm-up. It is a playground. Over time, something amazing will happen. By consistently giving yourself permission to generate junk, you will find that a few gems start to appear among the clutter. A silly invention might spark a real business idea. A random doodle might become the basis for a beautiful piece of art. A line from a terrible poem might be the perfect start for a heartfelt letter. The Junk Drawer Journal teaches you, on a deep, experiential level, that the path to good ideas is paved with hundreds of bad ones. It is a powerful, practical tool for making peace with the messy, beautiful reality of the creative process. Now that we have created a safe space for our ideas, let's look at another one of Solitude's creative superpowers. Its ability to help us make surprising connections. Groundbreaking creativity rarely involves inventing something out of thin air. More often, it is about connecting 2 or more existing ideas that no one has ever connected before. The legendary founder of Apple, Steve Jobs, spoke about this brilliantly. He once explained that creativity is just connecting things. He told a story about how, after he dropped out of college, he had the freedom to drop in on any classes that interested him. One of these was a calligraphy class. At the time, it had no practical application in his life. It was just beautiful. He learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about what makes great typography great. He was simply collecting a dot of knowledge. 10 years later, when he was designing the first Macintosh computer, he remembered that calligraphy class. He and his team designed the Mac to have beautiful, proportional fonts. It was the first personal computer to take typography seriously, and it was a major reason for its appeal. He had connected the dot of calligraphy with the dot of personal computers, 2 fields that had never been connected before. This is the essence of creative genius. Connecting the dots. The problem is, in our normal busy lives, our thinking tends to be very narrow and focused. When you are working on a report, your brain's task-positive network is engaged. It is a state of focused attention, and it is very good at filtering out irrelevant information to help you complete the task at hand. This is efficient, but it is the enemy of dot connecting. To make those surprising creative leaps, you need to switch off that focused network and activate your default mode network, your brain's wandering dot connecting mode. And as we know, this happens in solitude. When you are alone and your mind is at rest, it is free to drift across the entire landscape of your knowledge and experience. It can pull a memory from your childhood, connect it to an article you read last week, and merge it with a line from a song you heard this morning, creating a brand new idea. But to do this effectively, your brain needs a rich and diverse collection of dots to connect. You cannot connect dots you do not have. This leads us to our second actionable practice for this chapter, a 2-part process I call the input and incubate method. This is a conscious strategy for collecting diverse dots and then giving your brain the space it needs to connect them. Part 1 is the input phase. Your mission here is to deliberately expose yourself to new and varied information outside of your normal area of expertise. It is about intentional curiosity. Once a week, I want you to choose one input mission. This could be going to a section of the library or bookstore you would never normally visit, like the gardening section or the history section, and just pulling a book off the shelf and reading a chapter. It could be watching a documentary on a subject you know nothing about, from quantum physics to the art of sushi making. It could be visiting a new place in your own town, like a small quirky museum or a different ethnic grocery store, and just observing with all your senses. The key is to engage in this activity with no goal other than to learn something new. You are not trying to solve a problem. You are just stocking the shelves of your mental library with new and interesting dots. Part 2 is the incubate phase. Within a day or two of your input mission, you need to schedule a session of quiet solitude. This is non-negotiable. It could be a long, quiet walk without your phone, an hour spent sitting in a park, or just some time sitting by a window. During this time, your job is to do nothing. You are not to actively think about the new information you gathered. You are not to try and force any creative connections. Your only job is to let your mind wander wherever it wants to go. This is an act of trust. You are trusting that your subconscious mind, your default mode network, is doing its work in the background. You have fed it the raw materials, and now you are giving it the quiet space it needs to cook. You may find that ideas and connections related to your input mission start to bubble up, or you may find that nothing seems to happen at all. That is okay. The connections might be forming on a deeper level, ready to emerge as an aha moment days or even weeks later. The input and incubate method is a powerful rhythm. It is a dance between actively engaging with the world and passively allowing your mind to process it. By practicing this rhythm, you transform yourself into a conscious dot collector and a master of creative incubation. Finally, let us talk about the secret weapon of creativity, a state we have been taught to fear and avoid at all costs: boredom. In our hyperstimulated world, as we discussed in Chapter 2, we have become boredom intolerant. The moment we have a sliver of unoccupied time, we reach for our phones to fill it with content. We see boredom as a sign of failure, a waste of time. But from a creative standpoint, boredom is one of the most valuable states you can cultivate. Psychologists and neuroscientists are now beginning to understand that boredom is a powerful signal. It is your brain telling you that your current situation is not engaging enough, and it prompts you to seek out something new. This seeking state is what fuels daydreaming and mind-wandering. When you allow yourself to be truly bored, with no external stimulation, your brain has no choice but to create its own entertainment. It starts to build narratives, to imagine future scenarios, to play with ideas, to travel through your memories. This is not idle, wasted time. This is your imagination at play. This is your brain running creative simulations. Daydreaming is one of the most purely creative acts we are capable of, but we have systematically eliminated the conditions necessary for it to happen. If we want to unleash our inner creator, we must relearn the lost art of being bored. We must be willing to endure the initial discomfort of understimulation to get to the creative gold that lies on the other side. This requires a conscious and deliberate practice. So, our third actionable step in this chapter is the deliberate boredom practice. It is simple, but it is not easy. I want you to schedule a 20-minute block of time this week. During this time, you are going to go to a room, sit in a chair, and do absolutely nothing. No phone, no computer, no television, no books, no music, no journaling, not even any structured meditation where you are focusing on your breath. Your only job is to sit and be bored. You can look out the window, you can stare at the wall. That is it. The first 5 minutes of this will likely feel like torture. You will feel restless, agitated, and the urge to grab your phone will be immense. Your mind will scream at you about all the productive things you could be doing. Your task is to simply sit with that discomfort. Notice it, acknowledge it, and do not act on it. Sometime after the initial struggle, something will shift. Your brain, deprived of its usual diet of external stimulation, will begin to create its own. Your mind will start to wander in the most wonderful ways. You might find yourself replaying a funny conversation from years ago. You might start planning a dream vacation in vivid detail. You might suddenly have an insight into a problem you have been struggling with at work. You are giving your imagination no choice but to turn on. Practicing deliberate boredom is like taking your imagination to the gym. It might be uncomfortable at first, but with each session, you are strengthening your ability to generate ideas from within without needing a constant stream of external input. The power you are unlocking in this chapter is the power of creative self-sufficiency. You are learning that you do not need a team, a whiteboard, or a constant stream of entertainment to have brilliant ideas. Everything you need is already inside you, waiting in the quiet. Solitude is the key that unlocks it. It gives you the freedom to fail, the space to connect disparate ideas, and the boredom that fuels your imagination. This creative force will not just help you with artistic projects. It will infuse every area of your life. It will help you find a creative solution to a financial problem. It will help you invent a new way to connect with your children. It will help you craft a more joyful and authentic life for yourself. You are not just a consumer of the world. You are a co-creator of it. You have a unique perspective, a unique set of experiences, and a unique imagination. The world is waiting for the art that only you can make. But to bring this art into the world, to stand by your unique vision, even when it is challenged, requires more than just creativity. It requires an inner fortitude, a deep well of emotional strength. Now that you have reconnected with your creative power, it is time to build the unbreakable inner core that will allow you to share your gifts with the world, resiliently and with courage. In our next chapter, we will learn how to use solitude to build that very core, to forge the emotional resilience that allows you to bend in the storms of life without ever breaking. Chapter 5, The Unbreakable Core, Building Emotional Resilience in Quiet. In our journey together, we have come so far. We have walked through the intimidating silence and found a friend waiting there, our true self. We have sat in that quiet space and discovered it is not empty, but is in fact a vibrant creative studio where our best ideas are born. We have reconnected with who we are and with our innate power to imagine and create. But now, we must turn our attention to one of the most fundamental skills we can develop for a well-lived life. Because life, as we all know, is not always about joyful discovery and creative breakthroughs. Life is also filled with challenges, with disappointments, with unexpected storms that threaten to knock us off our feet. This chapter is about learning to face those storms. It is about building an inner strength so deep and so solid that you can navigate the inevitable hardships of life with grace, courage, and a calm heart. We are talking about emotional resilience. Resilience is not about being tough in the sense of being hard or unfeeling. It is not about building a wall around your heart so that nothing can hurt you. True resilience is the opposite. It is about having a heart that is so open and a spirit that is so flexible that you can feel the full spectrum of human emotion, from joy to grief, and still remain standing. It is the ability to bend without breaking. I want you to imagine a mighty oak tree in a field. Throughout its life, it faces countless storms. The wind howls, the rain beats down, and the lightning flashes. A rigid, brittle tree would snap under this pressure. But the oak tree survives, not because it is completely rigid, but because it has two essential qualities. It has branches that are flexible enough to sway and bend with the wind, and it has a network of roots that run deep into the earth, anchoring it firmly in place. Emotional resilience is the same. It is the combination of flexibility in our hearts and deep roots in our sense of self. And the quiet, fertile ground where we grow these roots is solitude. Our modern world often encourages the opposite of resilience. It encourages emotional fragility. We are taught to fear and avoid discomfort at all costs. The moment we feel a twinge of sadness, anxiety, or boredom, we are presented with 1,000 different ways to numb it. distract ourselves from it, or outsource the management of it. Feeling down? Binge watch a show. Feeling anxious? Scroll through social media. Feeling angry? Vent to a friend. While these strategies can offer temporary relief, a life built on them leaves us with a very shallow root system. We become dependent on external things, on other people, to regulate our own emotional state. We never learn how to weather the storm on our own. Solitude, in its beautiful and challenging simplicity, removes all the escape routes. It places you in the field by yourself, with your emotions, and invites you to learn how to stand. It is the ultimate training ground for growing your own unbreakable core. Let us begin with the most fundamental skill of emotional resilience, a skill that is both a practice and a superpower: the art of self-soothing. Self-soothing is your ability to take yourself from a state of high stress, anxiety, or emotional distress, and gently guide yourself back to a state of calm and equilibrium. It is the ability to be your own safe harbor. Think about what we do for a crying child. We do not tell them to just get over it. We might hold them close, speak in a soft voice, or rub their back. We offer them comfort and reassurance, and their little nervous system begins to calm down. As adults, we often forget that we have the capacity to offer this same gentle care to ourselves. When we are distressed, our first instinct is often to reach out, to find someone else to perform this soothing function for us. While seeking support from loved ones is a beautiful and necessary part of life, having the ability to first soothe yourself is a game changer. It means you are not dependent on someone else's availability or capacity to feel safe and calm. It means you are empowered to manage your own inner state. To understand how to do this, it helps to know a tiny bit about our own biology. Our bodies have a remarkable system for managing stress, known as the autonomic nervous system. It has two main branches. The first is the sympathetic nervous system, which is our gas pedal. This is our fight or flight response. When we perceive a threat, whether it is a real physical danger or an anxious thought about an upcoming deadline, this system kicks into gear. Our heart rate increases, our breathing becomes shallow, and our muscles tense up. It prepares us for action. The second branch is the parasympathetic nervous system, which is our brake pedal. This is our rest and digest response. It is what calms the body down, slows the heart rate, deepens the breathing, and promotes a sense of peace. Many of us, due to the chronic stresses of modern life, are living with our foot constantly on the gas pedal. Our sympathetic nervous system is in overdrive. Self-soothing is the conscious act of applying the brake. It is about intentionally activating your parasympathetic nervous system to bring your body back into balance. Solitude provides the perfect, quiet laboratory to practice this. This brings us to our first actionable step, a simple but profoundly effective technique that combines the power of breath and touch. It is called the calming breath and hand-on-heart technique. The next time you're in a quiet moment by yourself and you notice the telltale signs of stress, a racing heart, tense shoulders, a knot in your stomach, I want you to try this. First, stop what you are doing. If you can, sit down in a comfortable chair with your feet flat on the floor. Now, you are going to place one or both of your hands over the center of your chest, over your heart. The gentle pressure and warmth of your own hand is a powerful signal of safety to your nervous system. This simple act of physical touch can trigger the release of a hormone called oxytocin, often called the love or bonding hormone, which has a natural calming effect. Now close your eyes if that feels comfortable. You are going to practice a specific breathing pattern known as the 4-7-8 breath, which is a famous and scientifically validated technique for calming anxiety. You are going to breathe in quietly through your nose for a count of 4. Then you are going to hold your breath for a count of 7. And then you are going to exhale slowly and completely through your mouth for a count of 8, making a gentle whoosh sound as you do. The long exhale is the most important part of this exercise. It is a powerful biological trigger for the parasympathetic nervous system. Repeat this cycle 3 to 5 times. Inhale for 4, hold for 7, exhale for 8, all while keeping your hand gently on your heart. After a few rounds, just sit for a moment and notice the shift in your body. You might notice your heart rate has slowed, your shoulders may have dropped, the knot in your stomach might have loosened. In less than 2 minutes, you have taken conscious control of your own nervous system. You have been your own comforter. You have soothed yourself. Practicing this regularly in your moments of solitude, even when you are not highly stressed, builds it into a habit. It becomes an anchor you can turn to anytime, anywhere, a reliable tool for navigating the turbulent waters of your own emotions. Now that we have a tool to calm our physical state, let us turn to the mental and emotional side of resilience. This is about changing the way we relate to ourselves when we are struggling. Most of us have a deeply ingrained habit of responding to our own pain and failures with harsh self-criticism. We make a mistake, and that inner critic we know so well pipes up with, "You are so stupid. You always mess things up." Or, "What is wrong with you?" We feel sad or anxious, and we judge ourselves for it, thinking, "I should be stronger than this." This response is like pouring salt in our own wound. It takes a difficult situation and makes it exponentially worse by adding a layer of shame and self-loathing. Emotional resilience requires a radically different approach. It requires the practice of self-compassion. Self-compassion is not about self-pity, self-indulgence, or making excuses for ourselves. It is about treating ourselves with the same kindness, care, and understanding that we would offer to a good friend we truly cared about. The pioneering researcher in this field, Dr. Kristin Neff, has identified 3 core components of self-compassion. The first is mindfulness. This is the ability to acknowledge and notice our own suffering without getting swept away by it. It is the notice and name technique we discussed in Chapter 1. We simply say, "This is a moment of suffering," or "I am feeling a lot of pain right now." This clear seeing, without exaggeration or suppression, is the first step. The second component is a sense of common humanity. This is the profound recognition that suffering, failure, and imperfection are not personal defects. They are part of the shared human experience. When you make a mistake, you can remind yourself that all human beings make mistakes. When you are feeling heartbroken, you can remember that heartbreak is a universal human experience. This recognition that you are not alone in your struggles is a powerful antidote to the shame and isolation that often accompany pain. The third, and perhaps most active component, is self-kindness. This is the choice to be gentle and understanding with ourselves, rather than harsh and judgmental. It is about actively comforting ourselves, encouraging ourselves, and forgiving ourselves. Solitude is the private, safe space where we can consciously unlearn the habit of self-criticism and practice this new skill of self-compassion. This leads us to our second actionable step for this chapter, a journaling exercise called the compassionate reframe. The next time you find yourself in a spiral of self-criticism during a moment of solitude, I want you to grab your notebook. We have done the deep, internal work. But now, we must lift our heads and face the single greatest and most relentless challenge to our newfound solitude: the glowing screen. We live in a world that is not just noisy, but is vibrating with a constant digital hum. It is a world of notifications, of infinite scrolls, of endless feeds designed with the precision of a master locksmith to pick the lock of our attention and steal our quiet moments. The promise of this technology was connection, but for so many of us, it has become the primary architect of our disconnection, both from each other and, most tragically, from ourselves. This chapter is not a lecture telling you to throw your phone in the river and go live in a cabin. That is an unrealistic and unhelpful fantasy. Our digital tools are a deeply integrated part of modern life, necessary for our work, our logistics, and many of our relationships. Instead, this chapter is a declaration of independence. It is a practical guide to transforming your relationship with technology from one of mindless servitude to one of conscious mastery. We will learn how to carve out pockets of digital solitude in the midst of our hyper-connected lives. It is about learning to pick up our tools when we need them and to have the wisdom and the power to put them down when we do not. It is about ensuring that the most valuable real estate in the world, the space between your own two ears, is owned and operated by you, not by an algorithm. Let us begin by being honest about the nature of the beast we are dealing with. The discomfort and distraction we feel from our devices are not a sign of personal weakness or a lack of willpower. You are not failing. You are, in fact, the target of one of the most sophisticated and well-funded psychological experiments in human history. The ecosystem of apps, platforms, and websites that occupy our screens makes up what has been called the attention economy. In this economy, your time and your focus are the currency. Companies are in a ruthless, zero-sum war to capture as many seconds of your day as they possibly can, because those seconds translate into billions of dollars in advertising revenue. To win this war, they have employed the brightest minds in behavioral psychology and neuroscience to engineer their products to be not just engaging, but addictive. They have hacked our own biology and turned it against us. Consider the like button on social media. Every time you receive a notification for a like, a comment, or a new follower, your brain receives a tiny hit of dopamine. As we have discussed, dopamine is a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. It is what makes you feel good when you eat a piece of chocolate or get a compliment. The platforms have learned that if they deliver these dopamine hits on an unpredictable schedule, a concept known as variable rewards, it makes the behavior much more compelling. This is the exact same principle that makes a slot machine in a casino so addictive. You pull the lever, refresh your feed, and you do not know if you will get nothing, a small reward, or a big reward. This uncertainty keeps you coming back, again and again, chasing that next potential hit of pleasure. You are not scrolling because you are undisciplined. You are scrolling because a team of engineers has turned your phone into a pocket-sized slot machine. This addictive design has created a profound and painful illusion, the illusion of connection. We scroll through photos of friends at parties, on beautiful vacations, celebrating life events. We see hundreds, even thousands, of friends and followers. On the surface, it feels like we are more connected than any generation in history. But what is the actual quality of this connection? It is often a passive voyeuristic experience. We are watching the highlight reels of other people's lives, a carefully curated and often filtered presentation of their happiest moments. This creates a devastating culture of comparison. We look at their perfect-looking lives, and then we look at our own messy, complicated, behind-the-scenes reality, and we feel a pang of inadequacy. That old friend, the inner critic, is handed a mountain of new evidence to use against us. Look how much fun they are having. Why is my life so boring? Look how successful she is. I am so far behind. Look how perfect their family looks. Why is my life so difficult? Social media, in this context, becomes a machine for generating FOMO, the fear of missing out. It is a low-grade, constant anxiety that somewhere, someone else is having a better, more exciting, more meaningful experience than you are, and you are being left behind. This constant diet of comparison and FOMO is poison to our solitude. It makes our own quiet moments feel not like a peaceful sanctuary, but like a proof of our own failure. Sitting alone with a book on a Friday night feels less like a choice and more like a social death sentence when you are simultaneously watching 5 different parties unfold on your screen. The quiet that we have been working so hard to befriend is suddenly filled with the ghosts of what everyone else is doing. The result is a strange paradox. We have never been more connected, yet studies consistently show that rates of loneliness, anxiety, and depression have been skyrocketing, especially among young people, in lockstep with the rise of the smartphone. We are starving for authentic connection, while gorging ourselves on a digital substitute that leaves us feeling empty and malnourished. So, how do we break free? How do we start to live in the real world again, even as we continue to use our digital tools? It begins with a fundamental mindset shift. We must move from a place of fear to a place of joy. We must consciously and deliberately transform our fear of missing out into a joy of missing out, or JOMO. JOMO is not about being a cynical hermit who rejects the world. It is the exhilarating feeling of being content with your own choices, right here, right now. It is the deep satisfaction of knowing that your own quiet evening with a cup of tea is just as valid, just as beautiful, and just as meaningful as someone else's loud night out. It is the calm confidence that comes from being the author of your own life, not just a spectator in the lives of others. JOMO is a declaration that your own attention is a sacred resource, and you are going to be the one who decides how it is spent. It is choosing the deep nourishment of a real-life experience, even a simple one, over the empty calories of 1,000 digital ones. This shift from FOMO to JOMO is the North Star that will guide all of the practical steps we are about to take. It is our why. Now let us get to the how. We are going to embark on a 5-step process I call the digital declutter. This is not a one-time fix. It is a new set of habits and a new way of relating to your devices that you will practice and refine for the rest of your life. It is about creating an environment, both on your phone and in your physical space, that supports your intention to live a more present and focused life. Our first step is the digital awareness audit. You cannot change a habit you are not aware of. For the next week, your only task is to become a detective of your own digital behavior without any judgment. Most smartphones now have a built-in screen time feature that will do most of the work for you. At the beginning of the week, I want you to look up how to access this feature on your phone. Then, for 7 days, you are going to let it run in the background. At the end of each day, or at the end of the week, you are going to sit down with a notebook and review the data. What does it tell you? How many hours a day are you spending on your phone? What are the top 3 apps you use the most? How many times a day do you pick up your phone? How many notifications do you receive in a day? The numbers will likely be shocking. It is not uncommon for people to discover they are spending 3, 4, or even 5 hours a day on their phones and picking them up over 100 times. The purpose of this step is not to make you feel guilty. It is to provide you with a clear, objective baseline. This is your starting point, seeing the stark reality of how much of your life is being consumed by your screen is often the only motivation you need to make a real change. It is the moment you realize the leaky faucet of your attention is actually a fire hose, and it is time to find the shut-off valve. The second step is the notification triage. Notifications are the primary weapon in the war for your attention. They are the constant buzzing interruptions that pull you out of the present moment and back into the digital world. They are the enemy of deep thought, of meaningful conversation, and of peaceful solitude. We are going to declare war on them. This weekend, I want you to schedule 1 hour for this task. You are going to go through every single app on your phone, one by one, and make a conscious decision about its notification privileges. We will sort them into 3 categories. The first category is essential. These are the notifications that are genuinely important and time-sensitive. This category should be incredibly small. It might include phone calls and text messages from your partner, your children, or your boss. It might include calendar alerts for important appointments. That is likely it. The second category is helpful but not urgent. These might be notifications from a banking app or an email from a specific person you are waiting to hear from. For these, you can often turn off the sound and the vibration, so they appear silently on your screen as a banner, but do not actively interrupt you. The third category is useless. This will be the vast majority of your apps. This includes all social media notifications, likes, comments, new posts, news alerts, notifications from games, and promotional alerts from shopping apps. For every single app in this category, you are going to disable all notifications completely. Be ruthless. The fear will be that you will miss something important, but I promise you, you will not. The world will not end if you do not know the second a friend posts a new photo. The truly important information will still find its way to you through the essential channels. Taking this step is one of the most liberating things you can do. It is like soundproofing your life. You will instantly feel a sense of calm as the constant digital buzzing fades away. You are no longer living at the mercy of every app's demand for your attention. You are back in control. You decide when you want to engage with an app, not the other way around. Our third step is to create a home screen sanctuary. Think of the home screen of your phone. For many of us, it is a chaotic, colorful minefield of distracting apps, all screaming for our attention. Every time you unlock your phone, you are presented with a dozen different temptations. We are going to redesign this space to be a place of peace and intention, not distraction. The first action is to delete. Go through all your apps and delete any that you do not use regularly or that consistently make you feel bad. Be honest with yourself. That game you have not played in 6 months? Delete it. That social media app that always leaves you feeling anxious and inadequate? Delete it. You can always re-download it later if you truly need it. The second action is to organize. For your remaining apps, you are going to move all of the infinity pool apps, the ones with endless feeds like social media, news, and email, off of your main home screen. Put them in a folder on your second or third page. This adds a small but crucial layer of friction. Instead of mindlessly tapping on them, you have to consciously swipe and open a folder to access them. This small pause is often enough to make you ask, do I really want to open this right now? On your main home screen, you should only have tool apps. These are apps that serve a specific function and then let you leave, like your camera, your maps, your calendar, or a notes app. The final action is to choose a calming wallpaper. Instead of a busy photo, choose a simple image of nature, a solid color, or even a picture of a quote that reminds you of your intention to be more present. Your phone is a tool you carry with you everywhere. By redesigning its primary interface, you are turning it from a source of stress into a visual reminder of your commitment to digital solitude. The fourth, and perhaps most important step, is to create sacred spaces and sacred times. This is about building physical boundaries between you and your technology. It is about reclaiming certain parts of your day and certain areas of your home as being completely device-free. The first and most powerful sacred space is your dinner table. Make a rule, for yourself and for your family, if you live with others, that phones are never allowed at the table during meals. This one change can radically transform the quality of your relationships and your relationship with food. You will have real conversations. You will taste your food. You will be present. The second sacred space is your bedroom. Your bedroom should be a sanctuary for sleep and intimacy, not for endless scrolling. I want you to buy a cheap, old-fashioned alarm clock, and from now on, you're going to charge your phone overnight in another room, like the kitchen or the living room. This does two incredible things. First, it eliminates the temptation to scroll for an hour before bed, which disrupts your sleep due to the blue light and the mental stimulation. Second, it means your phone is not the first thing you reach for when you wake up. You will have a chance to start your day with your own thoughts, instead of the world's demands. Now for sacred times. I want you to create a digital sunset. Choose a time every evening, perhaps 9 p.m., after which all screens are turned off. Your phone, your laptop, your television. This creates a buffer zone for your mind to wind down before sleep. This time can be used for reading a physical book, listening to music, talking with a partner, or just sitting in quiet reflection. It is an act of reclaiming your evenings for yourself. Our fifth and final step is to schedule analog solitude. All of these digital decluttering steps are designed to create the space for real life to happen. Now, you must be intentional about filling that space with nourishing, screen-free activities. This is where you put into practice the ideas from our previous chapters. You are going to use some of the time you have clawed back from your phone to take a walk in nature, to work in your junk drawer journal, to practice the calming breath, or to simply sit in deliberate boredom. It is crucial that you replace the old, empty habit of scrolling with a new, fulfilling habit. Otherwise, you will be left with a vacuum that your brain will desperately try to fill with the old behavior. Look at your calendar each week and schedule in 1 or 2 hours of protected analog solitude. Treat it with the same seriousness as a doctor's appointment. This is your appointment with yourself. It is non-negotiable. This is where the real magic happens. This is where you take the quiet you have created and use it to connect, create, and heal. This journey of reclaiming your attention is a continuous practice. There will be days when you fall back into old habits. That is okay. The goal is not perfection, it is progress. The goal is intentionality. It is about moving from a life of digital distraction to a life of digital discretion. You are the master, not the slave. You are the one who decides what is a worthy recipient of your focus, your energy, and your time. Every time you choose to put your phone down and be present with your own life, you are casting a vote for a deeper, richer, and more authentic existence. You are choosing the profound satisfaction of a real conversation over 1,000 shallow notifications. You are choosing the creative potential of your own mind over the passive consumption of someone else's content. You are choosing the deep peace of your own company. As you continue to practice this, you will notice a wonderful shift. The world will start to appear in higher definition. The colors will seem brighter, the food will taste richer, and the people in your life will become more real to you. You will be reclaiming not just your time, but your life itself. This digital quiet you are cultivating will clear the way for an even deeper connection, a connection that is wired into our very DNA. In the next chapter, we will take the solitude we have found and bring it to the greatest cathedral of all, the natural world. Chapter 7. The wisdom of nature. Reconnecting with the world by yourself. We have faced the internal noise of our own minds, and we have begun the difficult but rewarding work of quieting the external noise of our digital world. We have created pockets of silence, sanctuaries in time where we can begin to hear ourselves think and feel. Now, we are going to take our practice of solitude and bring it into a partnership with the most powerful, restorative, and wise teacher we have, the natural world. This chapter is about stepping outside. It is about remembering that we are not separate from nature, but are an integral part of it. For centuries, our ancestors lived in deep, intimate connection with the rhythms of the earth, the cycles of the seasons, and the wisdom of the wild. But in just a few short generations, we have systematically severed that connection. We live our lives in climate-controlled boxes, we travel in metal boxes, and we spend our days staring at glowing boxes. We have forgotten the language of the wind and the lessons of the trees. We have become a species suffering from a profound case of nature deficit disorder. The result is a deep, often unnamed sense of anxiety, alienation, and spiritual hunger. This chapter is the remedy. It is an invitation to rediscover the profound healing and grounding power of spending time alone in nature. We will find that nature is not just a beautiful backdrop for our lives. It is a mirror for our souls, a balm for our stress, and a source of perspective that can make our biggest problems seem small. When we combine the power of solitude with the wisdom of nature, we create the ultimate conditions for healing, clarity, and a deep sense of belonging to something much larger than ourselves. To understand why this connection is so vital, we must first recognize that our affinity for the natural world is not just a preference. It is a biological inheritance. The renowned biologist E.O. Wilson developed a concept he called biophilia. The idea is simple but profound. Humans have an innate, genetically determined need to connect with nature and other forms of life. For 99.9% of human history, we lived as part of the natural world, not apart from it. Our brains and bodies evolved in that environment. Our senses are exquisitely tuned to its signals. The sound of a snapping twig, the scent of rain on dry earth, the subtle color shift in the sky that signals a change in weather. Our survival depended on this attunement. This deep, ancient connection is still coded into our DNA. The problem is that our modern environment provides almost no outlet for this primal need. We have tried to build a world of concrete, steel, and glass, and we are surprised when we feel stressed, anxious, and disconnected. We are like zoo animals living in an unnatural enclosure, and our souls are pacing back and forth, longing for the wild that is our true home. When you feel that inexplicable pull to look out a window at the sky, or that sense of peace you get from seeing a tree, that is your biophilia calling to you. It is a deep, instinctual part of you, reminding you of where you came from and what you need to be whole. The healing effects of nature are not just poetic, they are backed by a mountain of scientific evidence. One of the most important concepts in this field is the attention restoration theory, developed by environmental psychologists Rachel and Stephen Kaplan. They proposed that we have two kinds of attention. The first is directed attention, which is the kind you use for work, for studying, for driving in heavy traffic. It requires a lot of mental effort and is easily depleted. When you feel mentally fatigued, burnt out, or unable to concentrate, it is because your reserves of directed attention are empty. The second kind of attention is soft fascination, which is a more effortless, relaxed form of attention. This is the state your mind enters when you are watching the flames in a fire, the clouds drifting across the sky, or the waves rolling onto a shore. It holds your attention, but it does not demand anything from you. The theory, which has been supported by numerous studies, is that spending time in natural environments filled with soft fascination is what allows our depleted directed attention to recharge. It is like putting your overworked brain on a soothing, gentle charger. A walk in a city park is not just a pleasant break, it is a neurological necessity for a focused and effective mind. The physiological benefits are just as stunning. Studies from around the world have shown that spending time in nature, a practice the Japanese call Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, has a direct and measurable impact on our bodies. It lowers our levels of the stress hormone cortisol. It reduces our blood pressure and slows our heart rate. It has even been shown to boost our immune system by increasing the activity of our natural killer cells, which are a type of white blood cell that fights off infection and tumors. Think about that for a moment. The simple act of walking quietly in a forest can literally make your body stronger and better at fighting disease. Nature is not just calming our minds, it is healing our bodies. When we deny ourselves this connection, we are depriving ourselves of one of the most powerful and readily available medicines on the planet. But how do we access this incredible resource, especially when our lives are so busy and many of us live in dense urban environments? This is where we must get creative and intentional. We must redefine what nature means to us. The first actionable step is to break the national park myth. Many of us hold a belief that a meaningful nature experience requires a grand all-day excursion to a pristine, remote wilderness. This is a beautiful ideal, but for most people, it is an impossible standard for daily life. This belief becomes an excuse that prevents us from seeking out the nature that is all around us, all the time. From this moment on, I want you to adopt a new, more expansive definition of nature. Nature is the single tree you pass on your walk to work. Nature is the small patch of weeds growing valiantly in a crack in the sidewalk. Nature is the flock of pigeons taking flight in a city square. Nature is the clouds you can see from your office window. Nature is the potted plant on your kitchen windowsill. Nature is the moon you can see on a clear night. By expanding your definition, you suddenly transform your environment from a nature desert into a place of countless opportunities for connection. The goal is not to wait for the perfect, epic nature experience. The goal is to start finding small, sacred moments of connection in the world that is right outside your door. This new definition opens the door to our second actionable step, a practice I call the 5-minute nature dose. This is about building a micro-habit of connection that you can integrate into your busiest days. The goal is to accumulate small moments of nature exposure that over time have a powerful cumulative effect. Here are some examples of what a 5-minute nature dose could look like. It could be stepping outside first thing in the morning before you check your phone and simply feeling the air on your skin and noticing the quality of the light. It could be taking your morning coffee onto your balcony or front step instead of drinking it at your kitchen table. It could be intentionally choosing to walk on the side of the street that has more trees during your lunch break. It could be pausing for 5 minutes in the middle of a stressful workday to simply look out a window and watch the movement of the clouds. The key to this practice is to engage your senses. Do not just be physically present, be mentally present. What do you see? Notice the different shades of green on a leaf. What do you hear? Try to isolate the sound of a single bird. What do you feel? The warmth of the sun or the coolness of the wind on your face? What do you smell? The scent of damp earth after rain. This is a practice of mindfulness, using the natural world as your anchor. By taking these small, consistent doses of nature, you are giving your nervous system regular opportunities to reset and your attention regular opportunities to restore itself. You are weaving a thread of connection back into the fabric of your daily life. As you become more comfortable with these microdoses, you will be ready for our third actionable step, a practice we can call the awe walk. Awe is a powerful and often overlooked emotion. It is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast, beautiful, or powerful that transcends your ordinary understanding of the world. Psychologists like Dasha Keltner at UC Berkeley have studied awe extensively and have found that it has incredible benefits. Experiences of awe tend to make us feel more connected to others, more humble, and more generous. They have been shown to reduce stress and inflammation. Crucially, awe has the power to shrink our ego and our problems. When you are standing in front of something truly awesome, like a star-filled night sky or a majestic mountain range, your own anxieties and worries suddenly seem much smaller and less significant. You do not have to travel to the Grand Canyon to experience awe. You can find it anywhere, if you look for it. The awe walk is a short, 15 to 20-minute walk you take by yourself with a single, clear intention: to actively search for things that are awesome in the truest sense of the word. You are not walking for exercise. You are not listening to a podcast. Your phone is in your pocket. You are on a treasure hunt for wonder. As you walk, keep your senses open. You might be awed by the intricate geometric pattern of a spider's web. You might be awed by the sheer, stubborn resilience of a flower growing in a concrete jungle. You might be awed by the impossible, vibrant colors of a sunset. You might be awed by the vastness of the sky. The goal is to consciously shift your perspective from the mundane to the magnificent. By actively looking for awe, you train your brain to notice the wonder that is always present, but usually overlooked. An awe walk is a powerful antidote to the jaded, cynical mindset that can so easily take hold in our busy, stressful lives. It is a direct injection of wonder into your soul. For those times when you are unable to get outside, whether due to illness, weather, or living in an environment with very little accessible green space, there is our fourth actionable step: sensory immersion, or bringing the outdoors in. While direct contact with nature is the most powerful, studies have shown that we can get a surprising amount of benefit from simply engaging our senses with representations of nature. You can create a nature sanctuary right in your own home. One of the easiest ways is through sound. Instead of listening to the news or a podcast, try putting on a high-quality recording of nature sounds, like a thunderstorm, a babbling brook, or birdsong in a forest. These sounds can have a remarkably calming effect on our nervous system. Another powerful tool is sight. You can change the desktop wallpaper on your computer to a stunning, high-resolution photo of a natural landscape you love. You can buy a beautiful coffee table book of nature photography and spend a few minutes each day just slowly looking through the pages. You can even watch nature documentaries on television, paying close attention to the beauty and wonder of the animal and plant kingdoms. Finally, you can bring living nature into your home. Caring for a few houseplants is a wonderful way to engage in a daily, reciprocal relationship with the natural world. The simple act of watering a plant and watching it grow can be a profound source of connection and joy. While these methods are a substitute for the real thing, they are a powerful and accessible way to keep that thread of connection alive, even on the days when you are stuck indoors. As you build these practices into your life, you will begin to notice that nature is more than just a place of rest and restoration. It is also a profound teacher and a mirror. This is the deeper meaning we find when we combine solitude with nature. When you are alone in a natural setting, with no one to talk to and nothing to distract you, you begin to see the world and yourself differently. Nature becomes a mirror for your own inner landscape. On a day when you are feeling chaotic and turbulent inside, you might look at a stormy sky and see a reflection of your own turmoil. There is a strange comfort in this, a feeling of being understood by the world itself. On a day when you are feeling calm and peaceful, you might notice the stillness of a pond and see a reflection of your own inner state. You are not just looking at nature, you are in a dialogue with it. Nature also becomes our greatest teacher, offering us the lessons we most need to learn. It teaches us about patience. A seed does not become a mighty tree overnight. It grows slowly, steadily, and according to its own timeline. In a world that demands instant results, the patient, unhurried wisdom of a tree is a powerful antidote. It teaches us about resilience. We see a tenacious plant pushing its way through a crack in a concrete sidewalk, and we are reminded of our own ability to overcome adversity. We see a forest that has regenerated after a fire, and we learn about the possibility of new growth after a period of destruction in our own lives. It teaches us about letting go. The trees in autumn do not cling to their leaves in fear. They release them gracefully, trusting that there will be a new season of growth. This is a powerful lesson in releasing the parts of our own lives that are no longer serving us. Most of all, nature teaches us about perspective. When you stand at the edge of the ocean and watch the endless rhythm of the waves, or when you look up at a sky filled with a billion stars, you are confronted with a scale and a timeline that is vastly greater than your own. In the face of this immensity, your own personal dramas, your anxieties about that work email or that awkward conversation are placed in their proper context. They shrink. You feel a sense of humility, of being a small but beautiful part of a magnificent, interconnected whole. This feeling is the ultimate gift of our solo time in nature. It is the feeling of coming home. Your relationship with nature is a living, breathing thing. It needs to be nurtured. I urge you to take these practices and make them your own. Start small with the 5-minute nature dose. Go on an awe walk this week. Redefine what nature means to you. As you do, you will be healing a fundamental wound of modern life. You will be plugging yourself back into the source of all life. You will find that the more you connect with the world around you, the more deeply you connect with the world within you. The peace you are seeking is not in your phone. It is in the rustle of the leaves, the warmth of the sun, and the steadfast presence of the earth beneath your feet. It is waiting for you, always, just outside your door. The strength and clarity you gain from this connection will have a ripple effect, touching every part of your life, especially your relationships with others. It may seem like a paradox, but as we are about to discover in our next chapter, the time we spend intentionally alone is the greatest investment we can make in the time we spend with the people we love. Chapter 8. The Ripple Effect. How Solitude Improves Your Relationships. We have arrived at what may seem like the greatest paradox in this entire journey. We have spent chapter after chapter turning inward, learning to sit with ourselves, listen to ourselves, and find strength within ourselves. We have championed the cause of being alone, and so it is only natural to ask the question, what about everyone else? In a culture that often equates taking time for oneself with selfishness, this entire book could be misinterpreted as a manual for self-centered withdrawal from the world. But this could not be further from the truth. In fact, we are now about to discover the most beautiful and profound outcome of our inner work. This chapter is about the ripple effect. It is about how the deep, quiet work you do in solitude does not terminate within you, but radiates outward, transforming the very quality and texture of your relationships with every single person you love. The central premise is this: the greatest gift you can ever give to your partner, your children, your friends, and your colleagues is not a depleted, distracted, and performative version of yourself, but a whole, centered, and present one. And that version of you is forged in the quiet fires of solitude. We are going to dismantle the myth that solitude is selfish and rebuild it as the ultimate act of generosity. We will discover that by learning to fill our own cup, we finally have something true and nourishing to offer others. By learning to be our own anchor, we become a safe harbor for the people we love. By learning to quiet our own inner noise, we can finally, truly hear them. Prepare to see your relationships transform, not by focusing on them more, but by first focusing deeply and honestly on yourself. Let us begin with the simplest and most powerful metaphor for this entire chapter. You cannot pour from an empty cup. I want you to visualize your own energy, your capacity for patience, for empathy, for love, as a finite amount of water in a cup. Every single interaction you have throughout the day requires you to pour a little bit of that water out. A difficult conversation with your boss, a demanding email, helping your child with their homework, listening to a friend who is going through a tough time, even a pleasant dinner party with friends. All of these activities, both positive and negative, require an expenditure of your social and emotional energy. They all require you to pour. Our modern lives are structured around a relentless series of pours. We pour at work, we pour for our families, we pour for our friends, and in the digital age, we even pour our attention out for strangers on the internet. We have been conditioned to believe that a good person is a person who is always pouring, always giving, always available. The problem, which is so obvious yet so universally ignored, is that if you are always pouring out, your cup will inevitably run dry. What does it look like to be a person with an empty cup? You know this person intimately because we have all been this person. The person with an empty cup is irritable. They snap at their partner over something trivial. They have no patience for their child's perfectly normal, age-appropriate behavior. They feel a wave of resentment when a friend calls to ask for a favor. The person with an empty cup is emotionally numb. They go through the motions of a conversation, nodding and saying, "Uh-huh." But their mind is a million miles away. They cannot summon the genuine empathy to connect with another person's pain or joy. They are a ghost in their own relationships. The person with an empty cup is performing. They put on a smile at the social gathering. They say all the right things, but on the inside, they are utterly exhausted and counting down the minutes until they can leave. They are not connecting. They are managing an appearance. When we try to give to others from a place of depletion, the very substance of what we are giving is tainted. It is laced with resentment, impatience, and exhaustion. We are not giving them the gift of our presence. We are giving them the leftovers of our energy, the crumbs from the bottom of an empty bag. And then we feel guilty for feeling this way, which just depletes us even more. It is a vicious, soul-crushing cycle. Solitude is the act of taking your cup away from the thirsty world and placing it under a cool, clear, life-giving spring. It is the conscious, deliberate act of refilling. This is not idleness. This is not selfishness. This is essential, non-negotiable maintenance. Think about what happens in solitude that is so profoundly restorative. First, you are released from the relentless pressure of performance. As we discussed in Chapter 3, you can finally take off all the masks. You do not have to be the competent employee, the patient parent, or the witty friend. The sheer act of not having to perform, of not having to manage anyone else's perception of you, is an incredible conservation of energy. It is like closing all the unnecessary apps that have been running in the background of your mental computer, draining its battery. Second, your nervous system gets a chance to downshift. In social situations, our nervous systems are on high alert, constantly scanning facial expressions, monitoring tone of voice, and calculating what to say next. It is a cognitively demanding task. Solitude allows your nervous system to switch from that fight or flight sympathetic mode to the rest and digest parasympathetic mode we explored in Chapter 5. This is the biological process of recharging. Your heart rate slows, your muscles relax, and your body's resources can be devoted to repair and restoration. Third, you reconnect with your own source of energy. You remember what you love, what brings you joy, what makes you feel alive, separate from anyone else's needs or desires. You might read a chapter of a book, listen to a piece of music, or simply sit and watch the clouds. These are not just pleasant distractions, they are acts of plugging yourself back into your own sovereign source of power. This brings us to our first actionable step for this chapter, a reflective practice called the energy audit. To learn how to keep your cup full, you must first become a conscious observer of what fills it and what drains it. I want you to take a page in your journal and draw a line down the middle. On the left side, you will write drains. On the right side, you will write fills. Now, for the next week, I want you to be a detective of your own energy levels. At the end of each day, take 10 minutes to reflect on the events of the day. Under the drains column, list the people, activities, and situations that left you feeling tired, irritable, or depleted. Be specific. It might be that 1-hour meeting where everyone talked over each other, or scrolling through Instagram for 30 minutes, or saying yes to a social plan I did not really want to go to. Now, under the fills column, list the things that left you feeling energized, calm, or nourished. Again, be specific. It might be my 10-minute silent walk in the morning, or listening to my favorite album with headphones on, or spending 20 minutes reading my novel. After a week, you will have a powerful, personalized map of your own energy ecosystem. You will see, in your own handwriting, the clear patterns of what is costing you and what is sustaining you. The second part of this exercise is to look at your map and ask yourself one simple question. How can I, this week, schedule in just one more fill and say no to, or reduce, just one drain? This is not about radically overhauling your life. It is about making small, conscious choices to tilt the balance in your favor. It is the beginning of treating your own energy not as an infinite resource to be given away mindlessly, but as a precious, vital asset to be managed with wisdom and care. A full cup is not a luxury. It is your responsibility, both to yourself and to everyone you love. Now let us move to an even deeper, more transformative aspect of how solitude impacts our relationships. It is the journey from a state of emotional neediness to a state of emotional wholeness. Emotional neediness is one of the most destructive, yet often invisible forces in a relationship. It is the unspoken demand that another person be the primary source of our happiness, our validation, our comfort, and our sense of self-worth. It is born from a deep, hollow space within us, an empty bucket that we desperately try to get other people to fill. When we operate from this place of neediness, our relationships become less about love and more about a desperate quest for resources. We become like a person dying of thirst in the desert, and our partner or friend becomes our only source of water. This puts an impossible and deeply unfair pressure on them. They become responsible for our emotional weather. If they are in a good mood and give us attention, we feel okay. If they are busy, stressed, or need some space for themselves, we perceive it as a personal rejection, a threat to our very survival, and we might react with anxiety, anger, or manipulation. This dynamic, rooted in our own unhealed wounds and our lack of self-resourcing, poisons the well of true intimacy. It creates a relationship based on fear, not freedom. The needy person clings, constantly seeking reassurance. They might check their phone obsessively for a text back, overanalyze their partner's tone of voice for signs of disapproval, or demand constant togetherness because being alone with their own emptiness is terrifying. The other person in this dynamic often begins to feel suffocated, trapped, and drained, and they might start to pull away, needing space to breathe, which only triggers the needy person's fear of abandonment even more, causing them to cling even tighter. It is a tragic, self-perpetuating cycle that erodes trust and smothers the very love it is trying so desperately to secure. Many of us carry some version of this leaky bucket within us. We look to our partners to make us feel attractive, to our friends to make us feel interesting, and to our social media followers to make us feel validated. We are outsourcing the job of loving ourselves. Solitude is the sacred and sometimes difficult work of repairing our own bucket. It is the process of learning, step by practical step, to become our own primary source of validation, comfort, and entertainment. Every single tool we have discussed in this book is a patch for that leaky bucket. When you learn to soothe your own anxiety with the calming breath technique, you patch a hole. You prove to yourself that you do not need to immediately text someone else to manage your own nervous system. When you learn to speak to yourself with kindness using the compassionate reframe, you patch a hole. You prove to yourself that you can be your own source of comfort and validation when you make a mistake, instead of desperately seeking it from the outside. When you rediscover your own passions and joys using the joy list, you patch a hole. You prove to yourself that you can be your own source of entertainment and fulfillment, that your happiness is not contingent on someone else's plans. This is the profound alchemy of solitude. You enter the quiet space feeling empty and needy, and by consistently practicing these acts of self-care and self-discovery, you slowly begin to fill your own bucket from the inside out. This brings us to our second actionable step for this chapter, a powerful thought experiment I call the source inventory. I want you to sit down with your journal during a quiet moment. I want you to think about the last time you felt a wave of a difficult, needy emotion. It could be boredom, loneliness, anxiety, or a feeling of insecurity. Now, I want you to honestly answer this question. What was my immediate, automatic impulse? Did I instinctively reach for my phone to distract myself or to contact someone? Did I immediately seek out my partner to get a hug or some reassurance? There is nothing inherently wrong with these actions. But for this exercise, we are just noticing the pattern. The second part of the inventory is to ask, what is one small thing I could have done for myself in that moment before reaching out? This is about building a new habit, the habit of turning in before you turn out. For example, if the feeling was boredom, the old impulse might be to scroll Instagram. The new practice might be to first sit with the boredom for 2 minutes, as we practiced in Chapter 4, and see what arises. If the feeling was anxiety, the old impulse might be to immediately call a friend to vent. The new practice might be to first try the hand-on-heart breathing technique for 1 minute, and then see how you feel. The goal is not to become a stoic island who never needs anyone. Healthy interdependence is beautiful. The goal is to consciously break the automatic, reactive link between feeling a negative emotion and immediately demanding that someone else fix it for you. It is about building your self-reliance, proving to your own nervous system, one small experience at a time, that you are capable of holding your own emotional space. When you begin to do this, a miracle happens in your relationships. You start showing up not with a leaky bucket, demanding to be filled, but with a full cup, ready to share. You stop needing your partner to be your everything, which frees both of you to love each other from a place of wholeness, not deficiency. Your love becomes a choice, not a need. And that is the foundation of all true and lasting intimacy. Finally, let us explore one of the most refined and beautiful skills that is cultivated in solitude: the art of deep, empathetic listening. Think about the last, truly wonderful conversation you had. What made it so good? It is likely that you walked away with the feeling of being truly seen, truly heard, and truly understood. This feeling is one of the greatest gifts one human being can give to another. It is also one of the rarest. The truth is, most of us are terrible listeners. We are not really listening to the other person. We are listening for our own turn to speak. As the other person is talking, our mind is whirring. We are formulating our response. We are thinking of a clever piece of advice to offer. We are searching our own memory banks for a similar story about ourselves to share. Oh, that's just like the time when I... We are waiting to correct a factual error in their story. We are judging their experience. We are, in short, making the conversation all about us. While our intentions are often good, we want to help, we want to relate. The effect is that the other person is left feeling unheard. We have taken their moment, their experience, and we have steered it back to ourselves. Why are we so bad at listening? The primary reason is that our own minds are too full of noise. We are so preoccupied with our own thoughts, our own anxieties, our own stories, and our own ego that there is simply no quiet, empty space inside of us to receive what another person is offering. Our internal cup is already full to the brim with our own stuff. If someone tries to pour their experience into it, it just spills over the side, unreceived. True, deep listening requires the ability to create a temporary state of inner emptiness. It requires the ability to gently set aside your own agenda, your own ego, and your own story, and to create a quiet, spacious, and welcoming container for the other person's reality. It is an act of profound presence and humility. And where, in this entire book, have we been practicing the skill of quieting our inner noise and sitting with what is? We have been practicing it in solitude. This is the subtle, powerful connection. Every time you sit in silence and practice noticing your own thoughts without getting carried away by them, you are building the mental muscle of a great listener. Every time you sit with an uncomfortable emotion without immediately trying to fix it or push it away, you are developing the capacity to sit with someone else's pain without rushing in with unhelpful advice. Solitude is the dojo where you train in the martial art of presence. You learn to be a stable, non-reactive container for your own experience, which directly translates into your ability to be a stable, non-reactive container for others. You become less interested in being interesting and more interested in being interested. You start to listen not just to the words people are saying, but to the feelings beneath the words. You listen with your full attention, with your eyes, with your body language. You ask questions not to steer the conversation, but to deepen your understanding. What was that like for you? How did that feel? Tell me more about that part. When you can offer this quality of attention to another person, you are giving them a priceless gift. You are telling them, you matter. Your experience is important. I am here with you. This leads us to our third and final actionable step for this chapter, a practice you can take into your very next conversation. It is called the generous listening practice. Before you enter into a conversation with someone you care about, I want you to set a silent intention in your mind. For the next 10 minutes, my only goal is to understand. That is it. For those 10 minutes, you are going to put your own stories, your own advice, and your own agenda on a temporary shelf. You are going to adopt the mindset of a curious and compassionate journalist whose only job is to learn about the inner world of the person in front of you. When they speak, listen to the very end of their sentence without interrupting. When they pause, wait a moment before you speak, giving them space to continue if they wish. Instead of offering a solution, try asking a clarifying question. Instead of sharing your own related story, try reflecting back what you heard them say. So, it sounds like you felt really frustrated when that happened. This simple act of reflecting back makes the other person feel incredibly heard and validated. After the conversation, take 2 minutes to reflect in your journal. How did that feel? Was it difficult? What did you notice about the other person? How did the dynamic of the conversation change? Practicing this will feel unnatural at first, because it goes against our deeply ingrained conversational habits. But with time, it will become second nature. You will discover that being a great listener is far more rewarding than being a great talker. You will build relationships of astonishing depth and trust, all because you first learned how to create a little bit of quiet space within yourself. This is the beautiful, outward ripple of our solitary work. It is not selfish. It is the very foundation of a generous and connected life. When you commit to your own solitude, you are committing to showing up in the world as a better version of yourself. You show up with a full cup, able to give freely and without resentment. You show up as a whole person, able to love others without needing them to fix you. And you show up with a quiet mind, able to offer the rare and precious gift of your full, undivided attention. You become a calmer parent, a more present partner, a more empathetic friend, and a more focused colleague. The internal world you have so carefully cultivated becomes a source of light and warmth for everyone you encounter. You have done the work. You understand the why. You have seen the profound benefits that await you. Now, it is time to put it all together. It is time to move from theory to a sustainable, lifelong practice. In our next chapter, we will build your own personal solitude toolkit, a set of flexible, practical strategies to ensure that this practice becomes not just something you do, but a natural and joyful part of who you are. Chapter 9. Your Solitude Toolkit. Creating a practice that works for you. We have now traveled through the why of solitude. We understand its power to heal, to spark creativity, to build resilience, and to transform our relationships from the inside out. We have explored the deep, internal landscapes that quiet time can reveal. The question that likely remains, looming large and practical in your mind, is this: how? How do I realistically weave these practices into the fabric of a life that is already overflowing with demands, responsibilities, and a chronic shortage of time? It is easy to feel inspired by these ideas, but it is just as easy to feel overwhelmed, to imagine that building a solitude practice requires a radical, life-altering overhaul that is simply beyond your reach. This chapter is designed to dismantle that feeling of overwhelm. It is the bridge from inspiration to integration. This is the ultimate how-to chapter. But it comes with a crucial philosophy. There is no one-size-fits-all. The idea that there is one perfect solitude practice that works for everyone is a myth. And it is a myth that sets us up for failure. The truth is that a sustainable practice is a personalized practice. It must be flexible, compassionate, and tailored to the unique realities of your personality, your lifestyle, and your current life circumstances. This chapter is not a rigid set of rules to be followed. It is a toolbox. It is a collection of a la carte strategies, mental reframes, and practical ideas. Your job is not to adopt every single one of them. Your job is to be a curious craftsman, to pick up each tool, to feel its weight, and to decide which ones feel right for you in building your own unique, durable, and life-giving solitude practice. This is where you become the architect of your own inner peace. Let us begin by directly confronting the myth of the perfect practice, because it is the single greatest obstacle to starting. In our minds, we often hold an idealized image of what solitude is supposed to look like. It might be a monk meditating silently for hours in a remote monastery. It might be a writer sequestered in a quiet cabin in the woods for a month. It might be someone sitting in perfect lotus position stillness, their mind a placid lake of tranquility. These images, while beautiful, can be incredibly intimidating. We look at our own chaotic lives, with young children demanding our attention, with a high-pressure job, with a tiny apartment in a noisy city, and we compare our reality to that impossible ideal. The gap seems so vast that we do not even bother to start. We think, I can't meditate for an hour, so what's the point of doing it for 5 minutes? Or, I can't go away for a weekend by myself, so my life just doesn't have room for solitude. This all-or-nothing thinking is the kiss of death for any new habit. It is a form of perfectionism, and perfectionism is the enemy of progress. If you wait for the perfect conditions to start, you will be waiting forever. The foundation of a sustainable practice is the principle of radical self-compassion and realistic personalization. You must begin where you are, not where you think you should be. A solitude practice for a new mother with an infant will and should look dramatically different from the practice of a retired empty nester. A practice for a die-hard extrovert who gets energized by people will and should look different from the practice of a classic introvert who recharges in quiet. The goal is not to force yourself into a mold that does not fit. The goal is to identify your unique needs, your unique constraints, and your unique style of connecting with yourself. This is an act of self-discovery, not self-discipline in the rigid sense. So, our first actionable step is to create a personal blueprint. I call this the Solitude Style Assessment. This is not a test with right or wrong answers. It is a series of reflective prompts to help you understand your own needs. Take out your journal and spend 20 minutes exploring these questions. First, what is your primary recharge style? Do you feel most restored by stillness or by movement? Some people find deep peace in sitting quietly and meditating. Others find that their mind only settles when their body is in gentle motion, like walking, stretching, or even doing a simple task like washing the dishes mindfully. There is no superior method. Knowing your style will help you choose practices you will actually enjoy and stick with. Second, what is your solitude catalyst? Is it creativity, reflection, or sensory experience? A creative type might find that their most nourishing solitude comes from working in their junk drawer journal or playing an instrument. A reflective type might prefer journaling, reading, or just quiet contemplation. A sensory type might find their deepest connection through a walk in nature, savoring a cup of tea, or listening to music with their eyes closed. Again, understanding your natural inclination will help you choose activities that feel like a treat, not a chore. Third, what are your biggest, most realistic time constraints? Be brutally honest. Do you have young children at home? Do you have a long commute? Do you work 12-hour days? Acknowledging your constraints is not an admission of defeat. It is a strategic necessity. It allows you to design a practice that works within your life as it is right now, not the life you wish you had. Finally, what is your guilt trigger? As we will explore later, guilt is a major saboteur. What is the specific thought that arises when you think about taking time for yourself? Is it, my partner will be overwhelmed? Is it, I should be doing something more productive? Identifying your specific guilt trigger is the first step to dismantling it. Answering these questions gives you a personalized instruction manual. It allows you to move forward with a clear-eyed understanding of what you actually need and what is actually possible. With this blueprint in hand, we can now turn to the most practical and transformative concept in this entire chapter, the art of the microdose. We have touched on this before, but here we will explore it as the cornerstone of a realistic practice. The idea that you need a long, uninterrupted hour to reap the benefits of solitude is a myth. While longer periods are wonderful when you can get them, the cumulative effect of short, frequent, and intentional moments of quiet can be just as, if not more, powerful. Our days are full of tiny, overlooked pockets of time, little 5 or 10-minute gaps that we typically fill with mindless scrolling on our phones. These gaps are our hidden goldmine. By learning to recognize and reclaim these moments, we can weave a rich tapestry of solitude into even the busiest of days. A microdose is a conscious act of choosing quiet and presence over distraction for a brief period. It is about quality, not quantity. Let us build a comprehensive menu of potential microdoses you can choose from. Consider the very beginning of your day. The first microdose opportunity is what I call the morning threshold. This is the 5 minutes immediately after you wake up. The habit for most people is to roll over and immediately grab their phone, flooding their brain with emails, news, and social media before they have even had a chance to connect with themselves. The morning threshold practice is to resist this urge. For just 5 minutes, you will lie in bed or sit on its edge and do nothing. You can stretch, you can look out the window, you can notice the feeling of your own breathing. You are starting your day from a place of inner connection, not outer reaction. It is a small change that sets a completely different tone for the entire day. Next, consider your daily rituals. The mindful sip is a powerful microdose. Most of us drink our morning coffee or tea while multitasking. For this practice, you will take just the first 3 sips of your beverage with your full, undivided attention. Notice the warmth of the mug in your hands, the aroma, the complex taste. For just 90 seconds, you are fully present. It is a tiny island of peace in your morning routine. The same principle applies to your commute sanctuary. If you drive, try spending the first 10 minutes of your commute with the radio off. If you take public transport, instead of immediately putting in headphones, spend a few minutes just looking out the window, observing the world without judgment. Look for the gaps in your workday. The stairwell reset is a favorite of mine. If you are feeling overwhelmed at work, excuse yourself and find an empty stairwell or a quiet hallway. Spend just 3 minutes there, perhaps doing the calming breath technique. It is a powerful circuit breaker that can prevent stress from escalating. The analog lunch break is another crucial opportunity. Even if you only have 30 minutes, dedicate the first 15 to eating without a screen. If you can, eat outside on a bench. If you are at your desk, just turn away from your computer. This small break from stimulation can dramatically improve your focus and mood in the afternoon. The transition points in your day are also ripe for microdosing. I call this the driveway decompression chamber. When you arrive home from work, before you go inside to greet your family or face your evening chores, stay in your car for 5 extra minutes. Turn off the engine. Close your eyes. Take 10 deep breaths. This practice allows you to consciously transition from your work self to your home self. It allows you to leave the stress of the day in the car so you can walk through your front door as a more present and patient partner or parent. Finally, there is the end of the day. The digital sunset, which we discussed in Chapter 6, is the ultimate evening microdose, though it is a bit longer. Turning off all screens an hour before bed creates a crucial buffer for your mind. You can use this time to read a physical book, do some gentle stretching, or listen to calming music. It is an act of reclaiming your evening from the endless churn of digital content. Your actionable step here is to become a gap hunter. For 1 week, your mission is to identify 3 of these gaps in your own daily routine. Choose 3 microdose practices from the menu above, or invent your own, and consciously insert them into those gaps. At the end of the week, reflect on how it felt. Which ones worked? Which ones were difficult? The goal is to find 2 or 3 of these practices that you can realistically build into your daily rhythm. They will become your anchors of calm in the storm of your day. As you begin to practice these microdoses, you may find it helpful to create a physical anchor for your intention. This brings us to our next tool, the creation of a sacred space. Now, the word sacred might sound intimidating. I am not suggesting you need to build an altar in your home. A sacred space is simply a physical location, no matter how small, that you dedicate to your practice of quiet. It is a powerful environmental cue. Our brains are highly associative. Just as your brain knows it is time to work when you sit at your desk and time to sleep when you get into your bed, you can train your brain to enter a state of calm and introspection when you enter your designated solitude space. The creation of this space is a powerful statement to yourself that your inner peace is a priority. This space can be incredibly simple. It could be a specific armchair by a window. It could be a comfortable cushion in the corner of your bedroom. It could be a small bench on your balcony or in your backyard. The key is to define its purpose. There are a few simple rules for creating an effective sacred space. First, make it inviting. It should be a place you want to go. Add a comfortable pillow, a soft blanket, or a small plant. Keep it clean and uncluttered. A cluttered space often leads to a cluttered mind. Second, make it a single tasking zone. This is the most important rule. This space is for quiet, restorative activities only. This means no phones, no laptops, no work papers, no paying bills. It is a space for reading, for journaling, for meditating, for listening to music, or for simply sitting and being. By consistently honoring this rule, you create a powerful Pavlovian response. Over time, the moment you sit down in your sacred space, your body and mind will begin to relax automatically. Third, make it personal. You might choose to place 1 or 2 small, meaningful objects in your space. This could be a smooth stone you found on a walk, a candle with a scent you love, or a photo of a peaceful natural scene. These objects are not for worship. They are simply touchstones to help you anchor your attention in the present moment. Your actionable step is to design your sanctuary. You do not have to build it today. Just design it. Take out a piece of paper. Where in your home could this space be? What 1 or 2 things could you do to make it more inviting? What is the one most important rule you will establish for this space? Just creating the plan is a powerful act of intention. Then, over the next week, you can take small steps to bring it to life. Move the chair, buy the cushion, clear the clutter. Creating this space is a physical manifestation of the commitment you are making to your own inner well-being. Now, we must address the final, and perhaps most formidable, saboteur of our solitude practice: the emotion of guilt. For many of us, especially for women, parents, and anyone in a caregiving role, the moment we choose to take time for ourselves, a tidal wave of guilt can wash over us. A chorus of inner voices starts to scream, "This is so selfish. Your family needs you. You should be doing the laundry. You should be answering those emails. You are being lazy and unproductive." This guilt is not a personal failing. It is a deeply ingrained cultural and social conditioning. We have been taught the myth of the endlessly self-sacrificing person as the ideal. We have been sold the idea that putting our own needs on the back burner is a sign of love and virtue. But as we know from our empty cup, this is a lie. Chronic self-neglect is not noble. It is a recipe for burnout, resentment, and showing up as the worst version of ourselves for the people we love the most. To build a sustainable solitude practice, we must learn to work with and dismantle this guilt. The key to overcoming guilt is not to ignore it or to power through it. It is to meet it with a compassionate reframe. It is about consciously replacing the old, unhelpful story with a new, truer one. When that guilty thought arises, you must be ready with a powerful, pre-prepared response. Let us craft some of these reframes together. When the voice says, "This is selfish," your reframe is, "This is not selfish. This is essential maintenance. By refilling my cup, I will have more genuine patience and love to give to my family later." When the voice says, "I should be doing something productive," your reframe is, "Rest is productive. Calming my nervous system is productive. Maintaining my mental health is the most productive thing I can do for myself and everyone around me." When the voice says, "My partner will be overwhelmed if I take this time," your reframe is, "I am modeling healthy self-care for my children. I am showing them that it is important to take care of one's own needs, and I am trusting my partner to be a capable and equal parent." This leads us to our final actionable step: crafting your guilt reframe script. I want you to take out your journal and identify your top 1 or 2 guilt-inducing thoughts. Write them down. Now, next to each one, I want you to write a powerful, compassionate, and logical reframe, like the ones we just practiced. Write it in your own words. Make it feel true to you. The next time you step into your sacred space or begin a microdose of solitude and that familiar pang of guilt arises, I want you to mentally, or even out loud, recite your reframe script. It will feel awkward at first, but with repetition, you will begin to believe it. You are creating a new neural pathway. You are replacing an old, destructive thought pattern with a new, life-affirming one. You are giving yourself the permission that you have been waiting for someone else to give you your entire life. This is your toolkit. It is not rigid. It is not demanding. It is a set of compassionate and flexible tools designed to help you integrate the life-changing power of solitude into your real life. It is built on the pillars of personalization, of starting small with microdoses, of creating a physical anchor in a sacred space, and of actively dismantling the guilt that holds you back. You are now fully equipped. You have the understanding, you have the motivation, and you have a rich menu of practical strategies to choose from. This is not about adding another stressful to-do to your list. It is about strategically subtracting the noise and the pressure so that what remains is more peaceful, more present, and more you. This is a lifelong practice, a continuous journey of returning to yourself. And as we will explore in our final chapter, this journey inward never truly ends, but only deepens, becoming a constant source of strength and wisdom for all the days of your life. Chapter 10. The Journey. Inward never ends. And so, we arrive at the final steps of our journey together, here in the last chapter of this book. But it is a destination that is, in truth, another beginning. When we first started, we asked a simple yet profound question. What does it mean to be alone? For many of us, that question was once heavy with the weight of fear, of loneliness, of a cultural story that told us our worth was measured by our social connectedness. We saw being alone as a void, an emptiness to be filled as quickly as possible with noise, with distraction, with the presence of others. We have traveled a long way since that first question. We have walked a path that has led us not away from the world, but deeper into the heart of it, through the quiet, unexplored territory of our own inner landscape. This final chapter is not about learning a new technique or a new tool. We have already gathered all the tools we need. This chapter is about understanding how to carry them. It is about integrating the art of being alone into a lifelong practice, a living philosophy that breathes and adapts with you through all the seasons of your life. It is about cementing the understanding that this journey inward is not a project with a finish line. You will never be done. There is no final exam, no certificate of completion. There is only the journey itself, a continuous, beautiful, and endlessly unfolding process of coming home to yourself again and again. This is the ultimate adventure, and it is one that lasts a lifetime. Let us take a moment to look back at the path we have cleared together, not to reread the map, but to appreciate the landscape we have transformed. We began by performing a crucial piece of surgery on our own understanding. We took the tangled, painful knot of being alone, and carefully, decisively, separated the threads of loneliness from the threads of solitude. We reclaimed solitude as an act of choice, an intentional turning towards the self, and we recognized loneliness as the painful signal of a need for connection, freeing it from the shame that so often silenced it. This was the foundational act, the clearing of the ground upon which everything else could be built. With this new clarity, we found the courage to do what we had spent our lives avoiding. We faced the silence. We stood our ground against the deafening roar of the external digital world and the equally chaotic storm of our own inner noise. We acknowledged our fear of the quiet, not as a weakness, but as a conditioned response to a world that profits from our distraction. And we began, minute by minute, to build our tolerance for that quiet, discovering that it was not a void to be feared, but a space to be explored. And in that newfound quiet space, we stepped in front of the mirror of the self. For perhaps the first time, we allowed the turbulent waters of our identity to grow still, and we saw our own reflection, clear and true. We began the gentle, patient work of peeling away the masks we wear for the world, the mask of the perfect employee, the perfect parent, the perfect friend. We gave ourselves permission to be messy, to be contradictory, to be beautifully, authentically human. And as the masks fell away, we started to hear a voice we had long since forgotten, the quiet, unerring whisper of our own intuition. We learned to trust its subtle guidance, to listen to the wisdom of our own bodies, and to rediscover the simple, unadorned joys that made our own unique spirit sing. We became archaeologists of our own delight, unearthing the buried treasures of our passions. With this renewed connection to our authentic self, we unlocked a door we may have thought was sealed forever, the door to our inner creator. We dismantled the myth that creativity belongs only to a chosen few, and we embraced the truth that the creative impulse is a fundamental part of our human birthright. We learned that the aha moment is not born in the noise of a group brainstorm, but is conceived in the quiet incubation of a mind at rest. We created our junk drawer journals, giving ourselves a sacred private playground to be gloriously imperfect, to fail, to experiment, and to learn that the path to brilliance is paved with our own joyful messes. We learned to be bored, and in that boredom, we found the infinite, imaginative universe that resides within us. But a creative life, an authentic life, requires more than just good ideas. It requires a deep and resilient heart. And so, we turned our attention to forging an unbreakable inner core. We learned that resilience is not about being hard, but about being soft and strong, like the mighty oak tree that bends in the wind, but whose roots hold it fast to the earth. We practiced the art of self-soothing, learning to be our own safe harbor, to calm our own nervous system with the power of our breath and our own gentle touch. We declared a ceasefire in the long and painful war of self-criticism and began the revolutionary practice of self-compassion, learning to speak to ourselves with the same kindness we would offer to a beloved friend. We learned that we were the sky, not the weather, and we expanded our capacity to sit with the inevitable discomforts of life, knowing that all feelings, like all storms, eventually pass. We then took this internal strength and applied it to the most pressing challenges of our modern world. We faced the glowing screen, not as Luddites, but as conscious users. We diagnosed our own digital addictions and performed a digital declutter, transforming our phones from masters into servants. We built sacred, screen-free spaces and times into our lives, declaring our attention and our presence to be our own, not the property of an algorithm. And this act of clearing the digital noise opened up the space for us to hear an even older, wiser call, the call of the natural world. We remembered our own biophilia, our innate connection to the earth. We learned to find nature not just in the grand national parks, but in the single tree outside our window. We took awe walks, retraining our minds to see the wonder in the everyday, and we felt our own problems shrink in the face of nature's magnificent grounding perspective. And finally, we brought it all back home, exploring the beautiful paradox that all of this inward work is, in fact, the greatest act of service we can perform for our relationships. We embraced the profound truth that you cannot pour from an empty cup. We saw that solitude is the act of refilling, and that it is not selfish, but is the very foundation of a generous and loving life. We began the work of healing our own emotional neediness, learning to fill our own buckets from within, so that we could love others from a place of wholeness, not of lack. And we discovered that by quieting our own inner chaos, we were finally able to offer the rare and priceless gift of deep, empathetic listening, becoming a true sanctuary for the people we love. This journey we have taken is a profound one. But the most important thing to understand, as we stand here at the end of this final chapter, is that the journey is the destination. The goal was never to arrive at a mythical, perfect state of perpetual inner peace. The goal was to develop a deep and lasting friendship with the one person you are guaranteed to spend the rest of your life with, yourself. And like any great friendship, this one is not a static achievement. It is a living, breathing, dynamic relationship that requires ongoing attention, care, and commitment. It will have its seasons. It will have its ups and its downs. And that is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that it is real. Let us spend the rest of our time together, exploring what it truly means to cultivate this lifelong friendship with yourself. All great friendships are built on a foundation of a few key principles. The first is honest communication. This is the work we began with our daily check-in journal practice. It is the commitment to regularly, and without judgment, ask yourself, how am I really feeling? It is about creating a safe inner space where no emotion is forbidden. It is about allowing your sadness, your anger, your fear, and your jealousy to have a voice, to be acknowledged without you needing to immediately act on them or push them away. A good friend does not tell you to just get over it. A good friend sits with you in your pain. Learning to do this for yourself is a radical act of love. It means that no matter what you are going through, you will never be truly alone with it. The second principle of a great friendship is shared quality time. You would never expect a friendship with another person to flourish if you never made time for them. The same is true for the friendship with yourself. This is the purpose of your sacred space, your microdoses of solitude, your analog solitude appointments. This is you consciously carving out time in your calendar and saying, this time is for me. It is about honoring that commitment as you would honor a commitment to your most cherished friend. It is about showing up for yourself. It is in this quality time that you build trust. Your subconscious mind, your inner self, learns that it can count on you, that you will not perpetually abandon it for the demands of the outer world. This is where you have your most important conversations, where you dream your biggest dreams, and where you heal your deepest wounds. The third, and perhaps most challenging principle, is unconditional positive regard and forgiveness. Your friends will mess up. They will say the wrong thing. They will make mistakes. They will fall short of their own ideals. And you forgive them. You offer them grace. You see their mistake not as the definition of who they are, but as a single action, a moment of human fallibility. We must learn to offer this same profound grace to ourselves. The practice of the compassionate reframe is our tool for this. When you make a mistake, when you fail at something, when your inner critic rises up to condemn you, this is your moment to be a true friend to yourself. It is the moment to wrap yourself in the warmth of your own understanding and say, it's okay, you are human, you are learning, you are still worthy of love. Forgiving yourself for not being perfect is one of the most difficult and most liberating acts you will ever perform. It is the key that unlocks you from the prison of your own perfectionism and allows you to live a life of courage and growth. And finally, a great friendship is about celebration. A true friend does not only show up for you in the hard times, they show up to celebrate your victories, no matter how small. We are often so focused on our flaws and our next goal that we forget to acknowledge our progress and our strengths. I want you to build a new practice into your lifelong journey, the practice of self-acknowledgement. At the end of each week, during a quiet moment, I want you to ask yourself, what is one thing I am proud of this week? It does not have to be a monumental achievement. It could be that you finally made that difficult phone call. It could be that you were patient with your child during a tantrum. It could be that you managed to take 3 5-minute nature doses. By consciously acknowledging your own efforts and your own small victories, you are building a positive feedback loop. You are training your brain to see your own goodness, your own strength, your own progress. You are being your own cheerleader. This is not arrogant. It is a vital act of self-love that fuels your journey forward. As you cultivate this deep friendship with yourself, you must also make peace with the natural rhythm of life, the great ebb and flow of our human experience. Your solitude practice will not and should not look the same in every phase of your life. There will be seasons of your life that are naturally more social and outward focused. When you are starting a new relationship, raising young children, or launching a new business, your time for quiet solitude may shrink dramatically. In these seasons, your practice may be reduced to a collection of precious microdoses, the 5 minutes in the car before you walk inside, the 10 minutes after everyone else has gone to sleep. In these times, the all-or-nothing voice of perfectionism will tell you that you are failing at your practice. Your compassionate inner friend must be there to remind you, this is the practice for this season. This is enough. You are doing enough. Then there will be other seasons of your life that are naturally more introspective and solitary. You might be going through a period of transition, a heartbreak, or a time of deep questioning about your life's path. In these seasons, you may feel a powerful pull to withdraw, to spend more time alone, to go deeper into your journaling and self-reflection. This is not a sign that you are becoming antisocial. It is your soul telling you what it needs to heal, to process, and to find its next true north. The art of a lifelong practice is to learn to listen to these changing needs without judgment. It is a dance between the inward and the outward, between connection with self and connection with others. And you will learn that these two dances are, in fact, one and the same. One cannot exist without the other. Your solitude nourishes your relationships, and your relationships give you a world in which to express the self you have nourished in your solitude. So what is the ultimate purpose of all this? Where does this lifelong journey inward lead? It leads to a life of profound and unshakable freedom. It is not the freedom of a life without problems, but the freedom of knowing that you have the inner resources to meet whatever problems arise. It is the freedom of being less tossed about by the praise and criticism of others, because you have cultivated a stable and loving source of validation within yourself. It is the freedom of being able to enjoy the company of others from a place of want, not a place of desperate need. It is the freedom of being able to enjoy your own company, to know that even when you are by yourself, you are in the presence of a good and trusted friend. It is the freedom to hear your own unique creative voice and to have the courage to express it, because your self-worth is no longer tied to the outcome. It is the freedom to show up in the world as the person you were always meant to be, not the person you thought you were supposed to be. The journey inward never ends because you are an infinite and ever unfolding mystery. There will always be new layers to discover, new strengths to uncover, and new depths of peace to experience. Your inner world is as vast and as magnificent as a star-filled night sky. May you always grant yourself the time and the quiet to gaze upon it in wonder. The work is simple, but it is not easy. It is the quietest revolution you will ever lead, and it is the only one that can ever truly set you free. Continue to walk the path. Continue to come home to yourself. Your greatest adventure has only just begun. Our exploration for today may be over, but your personal journey is just beginning. This path of self-discovery is a continuous one, with new insights waiting around every quiet corner. If the ideas we have talked about have resonated with you, and you would like to continue exploring ways to understand your inner world and find strength from within, then I invite you to join our community. We will continue to share audiobooks designed to guide and inspire you right here. I look forward to continuing this journey with you.